What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Party Wagon Podcast, where we talk about everything TMNT, past, present, and future. I'm your host, Eric, from the YouTube channel No You Grow Up.
And I'm Brendan from the YouTube channel Brendan's Rambles. Well, real quick before we jump into the news, speaking of our channels, I want to say there is a congratulations in order. Oh. Eric, congratulations on 1,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Thanks, man. Pretty stoked about that. Yeah, definitely. So I remember when I first started, my boss was like, do you think you'll ever be able to get monetized? I'm like, it'll probably, I mean, at best, if I really push, 2 years maybe. So the fact that it happened in about 9 months really blew my mind. Yeah, I'm very, very shocked, honestly.
Are you approved for monetization?
Yeah, so it kicked in pretty quick, actually. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, so I'm up to like $7 and some change right now. So yeah, big bucks, man.
I mean, that's not too bad. I thought it was going to be 7 cents. So
yeah, it's, I mean, the way I think about it too, because everybody's like, you don't make shit, but I'm getting paid to do something I would have done for free now anyway. You know what I mean? I feel like if I just forget about the money kind of and leave it alone till the end of the year, then it will just be like a nice chunk of Christmas change. So yeah, even though it only is like a couple cents literally a day, like it adds up. So
exactly. You know, that's why people have change jars and stuff where they pop
exactly, which I am one of those people too. Like I am one of those people. So
only in the case of the change jar, that's your own money that you already spent. It's what's left over. This is new money being given to you for doing what you love. So
exactly, yeah. And that's the way I look at it too, is like, I mean, even if I was making literally 1 penny per day, I'm still, someone is giving me money to talk about turtles. Like, what an insane reality that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy. But congratulations, man. It's awesome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
So let's get into the turtle news. There's a ton of random little things to talk about. Since we last left off with Shredder's Revenge, I guess let's pick up with the video game news. There's been some video game news. One of them, real quick, we just had an update to the Cowabunga collection, where now you can play Manhattan Project Turtles 3 on the NES online. There's some new artwork added, like some Kevin Eastman exclusive artwork for the game, and they fixed an invite bug for the Nintendo Switch.
So the thing I'm really excited about is Manhattan Project, because that was the biggest bummer that we couldn't play that game online together when we were playing through everything. That's the one, like, I played it the least as a kid, but it's those kinds of games that like I jones the most for now too, you know what I mean? Because I didn't have it as a kid, so I didn't get to play it as much as I want to. So like a weird thing for me is my favorite video game of all time is Mario 64, and I never even owned a Nintendo 64 as a kid. That game just has so much just like allure to me because I never really got to like just play it to death as a kid. So anytime, like first time I was in college, my buddy had a 64, I played the shit out of it, and then I started dating this girl that had a Wii U, and we downloaded it, and I played it all the time on there. And that was the first time I actually 120 starred it. But nice. Like it's those games that I didn't get to play that much that I really liked. Those are like some of my favorite to go back and play now too.
Yeah, I can see it's almost like this missed part of your childhood, like this unachievable, like holy grail from your childhood or something. So, yeah, I can definitely see that. But yeah, that was our first go-to game we wanted to try. We didn't know it wasn't online yet. So we put on the Cowabunga collection. We both agreed, all right, Manhattan Project. And then we're like, oh, wait, you can't. And so it's nice to have it on now.
Yeah, so we'll definitely have to hit that together sometime. Because again, even just remembering it back, it's the one I remember the least too. Like I played through it a little bit by myself. And I think I only got to Ground Chuck and I died because that one's a lot harder than I remember it being too. Yeah. So yeah, it's another one I'd really like to revisit and work through. And I'm probably going to hit up my buddy Josh too and replay it with him again. Like I don't know, like ever since we started playing the Turtles games to talk about them for the videos, I've been back into them. Like I've been having a good time playing Shredder's Revenge and stuff again. And yeah, they just really are like awesome games.
Speaking of turtle games, there's a new turtle game coming out, and it's going to be, I believe, an open world, like a massive, like open world kind of RPG, like modern, Western RPG style game of The Last Ronin.
It's one of those things where you're like, man, I want it so bad, but there's no way they're going to give us this kind of game with the Turtles. Like Turtles has pretty much been, for the most part, on regular your consoles and stuff like that, it's been a beat 'em up since the Turtles 2 game came out. Essentially, there's been Game Boy games that are a little bit different, and I've never played any of like the games based off like the 2003 series or anything like that, so I don't know how some of those play. But as far as the original games go, which are definitely the most popular, it's always been a beat 'em up. So the fact that we're getting the kind of game that we actually want, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it, because I don't want to get too excited this early and just get disappointed, because I mean, they're coming out swinging. They're saying it's going to be a AAA game on like the scale of God of War. So I mean, that's a pretty big, like, I don't know, something to come out with, you know what I mean? Like, before you've even really done or shown anything.
Yeah, I get the impression it's going to be a lot like Spider-Man, like the PlayStation Spider-Man. I get the feeling it's going to be a lot like that. I'm so far behind in video games. I really never like evolved to that, state of gaming with like these big games. Like I've never played God of War. I've never played Spider-Man. I've never played a lot of, these big AAA franchises. I'm stuck on 2D platformers made for little kids. That's like the stuff I love. So, and especially like as I get older, I just have less and less time for like long games. So I'm like really far behind. I think the last like big long game I ever played was Breath of the Wild. Because I've gone back and played some other RPGs and stuff, but they're games I've played before. So it's like I know what I'm doing. But I haven't really like sunk my teeth into one of these like 40-hour games that they make now and stuff. So but I'm definitely gonna have to break that with this, because I'm thinking like just imagining being able to just explore a world as a Ninja Turtle and everything, and just like really feel like you are a Ninja Turtle when you're playing this game for the first time ever could be awesome. And Last Ronin just like lends itself to that kind of heavy action but good story based like gameplay also. Like I think like it just works so well for that comic.
So it was the smart move on a couple different levels. One, it's already like this darker, grittier, like spin-off universe. So they don't even have to like, to the average kid, it might not even be recognizable what it really is at first. You know what I mean? Because it's so far removed. And if you don't know about the comics, you're not really going to, I guess, grasp what this one turtle situation is. And the fact that they want to do like the heavier, grittier game with it, like I said, it's just the perfect combination to do it with. Is the Ronin universe, I mean, they're already, I would say the Image comics are definitely the most brutal, but as far as like, I don't know, like, I just really like the tone of the Ronin. I like that like dark, gritty style. I feel like in my mind, the game's always going to be at night. You know what I mean? Kind of like, I don't know. It's just, you get that like, what is it? Like the cyberpunk feel to it, kind of like the futuristic, like, it really, like the world they'll be able to build. Like, I'm just so excited to see what they end up doing with it. But like I said, I'm not going to get my hopes too high on that.
Yeah, it is a really interesting world that the comics built up, though, where you have this like wasteland on the outside and then like this Blade Runner city on the inside. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. But again, we haven't seen anything for it. So we don't even know what art style it's going to have. I don't know if they're going to go for like, how these games typically go with the very realistic art style, or if they're going to go, personally, I would hope they'd go more for like a cell shaded comic ink kind of look for it. Like if everything kind of looked like it was like inked like a comic book, and a little more like not bright and happy colorful, but just like those kind of like contrasting kind of colors, like that just, pop and just kind of look like a comic book basically.
I mean, it's kind of like how Breath of the Wild was, but it was done in more of like a flat palette. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It looked like it has that style to it where it looks like it's kind of drawn, but not really. Like, I know what you're saying. And kind of that's why everybody, I feel like, says the Wind Waker aged so well, is because they went with that like more stylized and didn't rely like on the realistic graphics at the time, because I feel like that's why everybody hates on Twilight Princess, because that's what they went with in that one, and those graphics just haven't really aged as well. But now the thing is, like, so we're at the point where we have these new consoles, and I'm still yet to upgrade to the next generation myself, because like you, I pretty much have only played my Switch for the last couple years. I played Grand Theft Auto 5 a little bit. I tried playing Final Fantasy 15 a little bit, and those are like the only games I've really played since I was into Fortnite in 2016. So it's been, or 2018. It's been a hot minute. And I've completely missed out on games like God of War and Spider-Man, because I've been in the Xbox camp for this long. So I've never really got to play like Breath of the Wild, like you said, is the only really like long adventure type game that I've played in God knows how long.
Even that, I mean, I did everything I wanted to do with that game in 2 weeks. I didn't do everything. I didn't even find the damn Master Sword, but like,
Dude, I put 170 hours into that game. I love that game.
Oh, really? I played it for 2 weeks. I beat all the shrines. Not all the shrines. I beat all the divine beasts. I found most of the shrines. And I beat Ganon. And after I beat Ganon, see, I have that old school mentality. Like, once the final boss is dead, I just feel like, well, he's dead. I don't want to go back and do all this extra homework. He's fucking dead. So it's like, for me, it's I always have that feeling of finality when I kill the final boss. But modern games don't like that. It's like you kill the final boss. It's like, all right, shit's just getting started now. And it's like, I want to be done now. I just beat the boss.
So that's the way I've always I'm the exact opposite. Like, I like just long open-ended games, and that's really what like gripped me. Breath of the Wild is probably one of my top 5 favorite games of all time. Like,
oh really?
Because I've never played I've never played The Witcher or any of these like bigger open world like huge games. So for me, it was the first time I really like explored a world like that, and that's what I loved about it, was just the exploration. Like, there'd be times I'd be on there for 5 hours and all they'd be trying to do is like just get on top of this mountain, you know what I mean? Like, I loved that about that game, and that's what I'm really excited for about this Turtles game. Like, because like you said, we don't really know a lot about what's going on. We just saw this like basically gated cyberpunk city, like you said, and then you had to swim through like a nasty ass moat to get there. So I mean, is there anything outside of that? Is that the only thing for like ever? Like, I'm excited to explore something like that. And that's why I kind of want it to be like those new style graphics and stuff like that. Because like I said, I just feel like it's going to be like dark and rainy all the time. Like, I don't know. I would like to see like just a hyper realistic, like to where the water looks real when it's bouncing off you and stuff. I don't know. Like, that's the way I see it going.
You know what? Just random thought. When I hear a Blade Runner style city and nothing but desert around it, the first thing that pops in my mind is like, oh, that's the world from the 1993 Super Mario Brothers movie.
Right.
Which the new one comes out today. So when we're recording this,
oh yeah, when do you have tickets to see it?
Friday. I'm going to be seeing it Friday. Probably going to end up doing a review on it on my channel, but we'll see. I never promise any videos because, I get out like one a month. So.
Right.
But yeah, I'll be excited to check it out. I think that's definitely where I think we differ in what kind of games we like. Because I remember after you watched my top 10 Nintendo games video, you were like, oh, there's a lot of stuff I'd want to talk about in this. And now I'm like, oh, I guess when I said Breath of the Wild was my least favorite Zelda, that was one of the things you wanted to talk about.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
It was just not really my favorite game, but I haven't played a lot of like, big AAA, open world kind of games. So I'd be willing to do it for Turtles. And I am excited. I do think that style of game works really well for Turtles. Like, when it comes to games like that, like shooters and these giant, open world games, I don't really judge them. I just kind of say they're not for me because I don't know those kinds of games. So I can't say if they're good or bad. They're probably a lot of the ones that I would say, like, I don't care about that. It's probably a great game. So I'm not going to say it sucks. I'm just going to say it's not for me. So
to be fair, like, Breath of the Wild is one of the random games that I have played in that style as of late. Like, other than that, the last I played Chrono Trigger. I have played Chrono Trigger in the last couple of years. So I played through Xenoblade 2, and those are the only 2 real long games that I've played since I have my Switch. Other than that, I pretty much do just play like shorter platformers and stuff like that. But again, I pumped 90 hours into Mario Odyssey, and what I mean, I have like 900 some moon. Like, I don't know. I like having a lot of crap to do. Like, I don't know. I really like to be a completionist when I play games, I guess.
I'm more like, I just want obstacles and like fast challenge. Like, I think like Mario Odyssey, honestly, it bored me to tears because it was just
really?
Like, it felt like we just threw you in an empty world. And it's like, you figure out your own damn fun. It's like,
oh, man.
Like, I want Super Mario 3D World was my favorite 3D Mario game because they were levels. They were built to be obstacle courses that you have to get through. And like, I know, like, again, I'm not saying that those are bad. Everyone loves the 3D Mario games. I'm not saying they're bad, but they never really been my cup of tea. I always preferred 2D Mario because I just like that fast action. That's what I like from video games usually is just that fast action, that like kind of like, Mega Man, Castlevania, Ninja Gaiden, that kind of stuff. Or even some stuff like, not to get too off topic, get back to Turtles at some point, but even like Yoshi's Island, the Super Nintendo. I loved it when I first played it, but anytime I revisit it, I'm like, it's just so much shit to collect, man. Like, I don't want to collect all this shit. Like, you got to have 30 stars and find 20 red coins and 5 flowers and like all this shit. It's just like, can I just like beat the level and then call it a day? Like,
Yeah,
So,
I guess. Yeah, I never really knew that we were so much different, but that makes a lot of sense. But
yeah. But I mean, everyone they have there's exceptions. Obviously, there's games I've played that are a lot slower, a lot longer that I've enjoyed a lot. But yeah, anyway, that's basically all the video game news. But there's, of course, as always, there's a lot of toy news. Before we get to continuing Super 7 from last time, there's some stuff to talk about on the Playmates side of things and the loyal subject side of things.
Start off with Playmates. We saw those baby turtles that look like they're going to be a Target exclusive, and
of course,
yeah, I don't know. They don't really do a whole lot for me. Like,
no,
yeah, they're just not really anything I need. It's not like, I don't know. I don't want to say they look terrible, but they're just not for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was actually going to make the joke that they looked like the South Park kids, but then I literally saw in the link you sent me, one of the first comments was like, someone said, I'm going to kit bash these to make them South Park kids. I'm like,
oh man, I didn't see that, but that's like perfect. Yeah, because even Raph, like you said, he's a little chunkier, looks like Cartman. Yeah, like, dude, that's perfect.
I mean, they have those like the eyes, they have those like South Park eyes. And,
yep.
Yeah, I just don't need. I mean, even the baby turtles we just got from NECA are like some of the least noteworthy NECA figures we've gotten recently.
Yeah, dude, I really feel like, I mean, the more and more time goes on, like, I don't know. I feel like that's been one of the most overhyped things. And I understand that the real frustration was that people just couldn't get it, but I don't know. They don't really do a lot for me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm glad I have them. They're cool, but I've had that Shredder for how long? And it's not like I've been super stoked on that baby Shredder either. So
yeah, baby Shredder. I mean, we get all kinds of stuff. We have like Gerbil Mike and like Pigeon Pete and all those little like animal things that like they're cute little things to throw in like with your other characters to kind of create a scene to make it a little more lively. But no one's like super ecstatic about the fact that we got Gerbil Mike. Like nobody really cares.
Well, so like when I first set up my display, I would try to like have stuff like that out. But at one point, it's just like, this is just one more thing I have to move to dust around. And like, why? Like, I'll just put this back. It doesn't need to be out here. Like, so it's got to be at least baby-sized turtle or big. I guess I have the little pizza monster in a pizza box. That's the only like teeny thing that I have out right now because that's just one of my favorite episodes. So I have to have that out.
Yeah, I have a bunch of little stupid trinkets out. I have all the little not mutated frogs and gecko, and I have like the toxic waste barrel with like the slime in it and like Pigeon Pete on top of it and stuff. And it's like I just have like all this crap, and it sucks. And anytime I go to dust, it's like, oh god, I gotta move all this crap.
That's
I gotta put it back. And
there's some people that they'll display their figures with every accessory next to them, and I'm just like, how do you do that when you go to clean like that? I mean, it like I feel like it's probably about an hour per shelf if I'm resetting. So like if I had every single accessory to worry about too, like, yeah, I don't know, people be crazy, man.
I mean, the only way I would do that is if I had like glass covers that I could just like put over my bookshelves so that no dust gets in. But
a lot of people say that like Billy's or not Billy's, the Detolfs, they don't even keep out dust well though either.
Oh,
like they're not even sealed that well.
Yeah, I don't really see how they could be. It'd have to be like a custom one built specifically. Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't really care about these baby turtles. I mean, this Playmates line, I am excited to see they're still making more stuff. It's very cool that they're just, pumping out so much stuff from Mutant Mayhem. But I mean, I'm already not sold on all of the Mutant Mayhem figures as it is anyway. So, like, I might collect some of it, but I'll see. Like, as I start seeing them in stores, I think it's going to be like the real determining factor if I want them or not. So.
That's what it always is for me, because there's so many things that I'm like, I would never pre-order that, but if I see it in store, like I'm like, okay, I'll get it. Like that's how it is with pops. I've never pre-ordered a pop, but if I see it in the store, I'm like, well, it's a turtle pop, like I'm gonna buy it. So that's the kind of stuff that's exactly how I'll be about it. There's no way I'm gonna pre-order it. I don't care that much. And honestly, I'm probably, if I get anything, it'll just be the 4 turtles. And like I'm really trying to rationalize it to myself now, because at one point I had all 4 of the turtles from the 2003 series. I had all 4 of the turtles from the 2012 series. I had all 4 of the turtles from Rise, and I don't have them anymore. Like I got rid of them. So like if I get these turtles, am I going to be excited about it for like the couple months after the movie and then just forget about them? Like I'm trying to like be responsible in that aspect now, and it's really, I don't know, it doesn't make for fun collector talk at all, but
yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I was just saying for the cast too. It's like I'm not going to be collecting jack shit for a couple months because between Holothon and then even more like the dental bills I had to do because I had to get a crown replaced and stuff. Like I don't have a toy budget for a long time. So
like honestly, this is probably like the best time to be down too, because I'm sure NECA's going to throw probably some more comic book stuff at us soon. I feel like that's what's going to come next. But I feel like we're probably not going to get any more Toon figures till at least late summer, if not next fall, with the dump they just put on us. And same with Super 7. At best, we'll have a wave late fall. So, I mean, really, I'm looking forward to a little bit of downtime myself from buying stuff. So, like I said, I'm trying to do some other stuff and pay off some debt and just be a little bit more responsible. And not fun. Not a fun doing adult things with your money. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely not. And I want to say thanks to we have a viewer named Jeremy who said he had a spare Toon, Toka, and Razar, who I don't have. And he actually offered to supply it for me. And I told him no, because I'm just so low on money right now because after everything. But that is so awesome, dude. If you're listening, thank you so much. That just blows my mind that someone that listens to my stupid videos online is willing to help me with my collection. Like that's just that's so cool. But I really can't right now because I don't have like a penny for expendable income. So it's like I'm just gonna have to hope they start showing up on store shelves again at some point, which they seem to be in some areas. So they might come to New Jersey eventually. But just like I just got to take like a month or two off from collecting anything. So, but that is awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for that because that's really cool. Super 7 delayed their one that was supposed to come out in June, and NECA dumped everything right now. And then, like you said, we probably won't get them until like September or October on the new orders. I almost wonder, we keep thinking like, oh, it's because, we'll get the Super 7 in a bit, but we keep assuming, oh, it's because Super 7 had Playmates trouble. That's why they delayed the line. Maybe they delayed the line, or that wave, I mean, because Playmates is like, this summer is ours for Turtles. We're putting out all the Mutant Mayhem stuff. So maybe all the third-party developers for Turtles aren't allowed to put out stuff in the summer while Playmates is putting out their Mutant Mayhem stock. Maybe. That's a theory, so...
Interesting. Yeah, I've never really thought about that, but that would make sense because NECA's kind of wrapped up with what we've seen for the monster line right now. So now that this Casey's out, that's pretty much all the figures they've shown for that, right? So that'll kind of be wrapped up. Comic book stuff, have we been shown anything more than what we've been given?
I don't think so. There's the new April that's coming out. They just
that just got shown. Yeah. So I'm assuming that might be an April type of situation. I feel like they like to do things like that in April, so that could happen, I guess. Yeah. And then what's the cartoon line? We're definitely probably not going to get anything for a hot minute.
And I think in the fall we'll get like Bugman and like the giant Napoleon and stuff.
That's what I'm thinking. He's probably going to come to with maybe a few more new figures that they announce at like San Diego Comic-Con or something like that.
Oh, you know what? I just remembered we never mentioned that showed up in a display for the Toon line that we never mentioned, that there's like a Toon version of the Last Ronin that was shown off in a display as like a what if figure, kind of like how the Usagi and the Space Donnie were shown off in the cross cell. When they had the big display with like Dirk Savage and the big Napoleon and everything, hidden in the background there was like a Toon Last Ronin. And I wonder what the heck that is.
So I've always been curious if that's even a real figure, or if it's just like a random Easter egg they put in there for Comic-Con. Because I feel like you can't show something like that and then not give it to people. Like that's just mean. Like
it's like I was saying with the Tiffany figure. Like, don't show us these things and then take them away.
Right. And this is even worse because we've actually seen it. We've even seen the Tiffany figure. So like those would be things that I feel like would make good Comic-Con exclusives, because I'm wondering at one point I feel like they're gonna have to take Comic-Con exclusives exclusively back to Comic-Con. Like I can't imagine they're just gonna keep coming to Target and stuff forever now. Maybe they will. It would be awesome if they did. I wouldn't be mad about it, but I could see that being a pack, like the What If figures, the Space Adventure Usagi, the Space Adventure Donatello, the Ronin Toon figure, and then maybe another random one in a 4-back. Like clearly I would be pissed if I couldn't get those, but they're not figures that I desperately need. So I feel like those would make for good exclusives, because that's what they should be, is figures that are cool to have, but don't break your collection like a Scrag does now if you don't have it.
Scrag's still the worst one because it's like, come on, we have the whole gang now. We need Scrag, but
Yeah.
But I guess anyway, that's pretty. Oh, Playmates is also, they're continuing their trend of bringing back their vintage figures. They never seem to bring back a lot of the mainline figures, though. They always seem to just bring back the sublines. And they're doing the mutating turtles now. They were cool, fun gimmick, but I was never a fan of how those figures looked as a kid.
So it always bothered me too. Like I hated how big and fat and circular their bodies were, but I was always what's that?
They just look like barrels,
right?
Barrels.
So, but I was always the kind of kid that's like, oh, this is the new Raph. Like I have to like this one the most because it's new. So that's kind of how I always was. And the one weird memory that I do have with this figure, and I actually said something to someone about this in my comments. So there used to be a SeaWorld in Ohio, of all places, the most random place in the world for a SeaWorld. And we went there on a vacation one time, and that was the figure that I brought with me on that vacation. And that's what I remember almost more than SeaWorld, is just having that figure. I remember playing with it in the hot tub. I think I lost one of his size in the hot tub or something like that. But that's the strongest memory I have of that vacation. That and seeing an emperor penguin and thinking they were super scary. Those are the two things that I remember from that vacation.
That's not the reaction most people have to emperor penguins, but okay. I thought you were going to say seeing an emperor penguin and thinking it was super cute. And you're like,
no, they're the scary ones that have like the hair, horn, right? Yeah. Wasn't a fan when I was a kid.
I think the
penguins weirded me out.
Our emperor penguins, those are the normal ones, just with the white chest with the little yellow on the neck. Is that an emperor penguin, or is that the one with the crown? I don't know, actually.
I always thought it was the one with the crown, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know a whole lot about penguins. Like,
yeah, the one that the type that like what was it, like Jim Belushi like voiced in that terrible Don Bluth one, Pebble and the Penguin or whatever.
I've never seen that.
Oh, don't, it was so bad.
Don't worry, I won't now.
And I'm not crapping on Don Bluth. He made some great stuff in the 80s, but oh man, he had some rough times in the 90s. But anyway, yeah, I only had the Rocksteady for that. It was actually my brother's, but we had the Rocksteady, and it's funny, Rocksteady and Bebop had to have long sleeves so that they could like eliminate the arms. And Bebop, for some reason, was like a white redhead guy all of a sudden, which is like in the cartoon, he was a black guy with the purple mohawk. Yeah. And then in the toy, they made him like a white guy with a red mohawk. I was like,
weird. I guess I've never seen that one. Because there's the same, or were they just like a flip head change?
You would flip the hands and the head and turn them into like a rhino and a warthog.
Okay.
But like Bebop's hands would turn brown when you flipped them, where it's like you could have just left the same hands on and saved yourselves the trouble, because I don't know, it was weird they made him white. Yeah, I just remember thinking that Rocksteady, like, it was fun to do the gimmick a couple times, but then once you do that, you're like, he's kind of dumb looking. Like, he's just like this big barrel with like Rocksteady's head. They didn't fit in with the other figures because they were so big.
Yeah.
And I get it. Vintage Playmates was all about the play features, and I do respect that. But I just felt like I didn't like the play features too much when they broke up the sculpt too much, when they ruined the figure too much. So I wasn't a huge fan of those. And those also came out late. So that was like kind of around the time I was starting to get out of the line as a kid. So they weren't my favorite, I guess. They weren't like my favorite part of the line, which a lot of these sublines they're putting out are later ones, or they put out the pizza tossers and stuff. So it's like they're really focusing on like the tail end of the line, kind of, which is weird.
So something off what you said earlier, you said they haven't been putting out a lot of mainline figures, and I wonder, so they got a lot of flack for when they put out that Mutagen Man because he didn't have like any of his accessories. He didn't have his Mutagen tank or maybe his gun. He didn't have either even.
I don't think he came with all the little things you put inside of him.
Yep, he did. Yeah. So I bet that might be why they've probably lost a lot of tools and stuff like that. And I bet a lot of the earlier stuff is the stuff that they probably don't have. And they probably do have a little bit more of the later stuff, would be my guess as to what they're doing. I'd imagine they're just running through whatever tools they probably still have in good shape.
The only thing I think kind of tosses a wrench in that is around like 2008, 2009, they were re-releasing like Slash and like all these figures from like the first 3 waves. And they had all their accessories, I'm pretty sure.
Well, they've done a Slash recently too.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay, because yeah, it seems like they always bring back the same characters. Like I've never seen them re-release like Muckman or something, but
Yeah.
it does seem like they do have a lot of the older ones. Definitely seems like the first 2 waves they have almost everything from those, if not everything. I wonder if maybe it's just a case that in this day and age they can't get away with charging $10.99 for some of those old figures because they came with so much stuff and they had so much plastic. And I don't know if, translucent plastic costs more than other plastic or something. So I don't know if like technically they can't get away with charging the same price point for some of those. And they just figure like, well, people aren't going to want to buy it for $1 more. So let's not put it on the shelf, even though people would buy it for $1 more.
Well, yeah, because that's the thing. Because I mean, because at Walmart, I think they're $12.99, right? And then places like Target, I think they're $14.99.
See, I don't know because you said that, but I got my Krang, his bubble walker was missing the glass bubble.
Oh, really?
So I actually bought a new one just to get the glass bubble.
Yeah.
And that was at Target, and he was $10.99 by me.
Okay, so maybe I'm crazy then. Maybe they are that price there too. But they did charge at Walmart $14.99 for the pizza tossers, though. So the upgraded ones, they do charge a little bit more. And yeah, I mean, I still bought those too.
It's cool they're bringing them back. It's definitely cool to bring back stuff like the mutating turtles. Like that's something I never thought would exist outside of the 90s.
No, that's one I was very surprised to see as well. Because again, if it's a tooling issue, that would be one. I mean, that's got a lot of freaking tools inside that turtle. He's got 2 sets of arms, 2 sets of legs, and they're all their own independent things. So, yeah, it's definitely a weird one for me. I didn't see that one coming at all.
I think just like how they did the giant turtles, they didn't do Giant Bebop and Rocksteady, which came with the original giant turtles. And I mean, eventually they made like Giant Basketball Don and stuff, like Slam Dunk and Don. But of the original a bunch of giant turtles, it was the 4 turtles and Bebop and Rocksteady. They didn't do Bebop and Rocksteady in the re-releases. I don't think they're doing Mutating, Bebop and Rocksteady, April, Splinter, Toka, or Razar. I think it's just the 4 turtles.
Oh, for this, definitely, yeah. Again, like, because the re-released turtles were, like, the giant turtles were, like, we talked about this, a completely different mold, and they made one mold and got 4 turtles out of it. So the Bebop and Rocksteady, the juice probably wouldn't be worth the squeeze there for them to do. And
so I don't think they're going to be doing like Mutating, Toka, and Razar and stuff. So, but that is a bit of a shame. It is because it does kind of, I hate to say, but it kind of makes the brand feel a little less special than it actually is. When it's just like, oh, you get the same 4 characters over and over again. Like the vintage line did have a lot more variety than just that. So it's kind of a shame that their modern representation of what the vintage line was just a bunch of, molds, a bunch of new molds of the same characters or new action features for the same 4 characters.
Yeah.
But we'll get into all the other characters later in this podcast. Probably the last toy news to cover. Someone is finally doing IDW themed turtles, not like Last Ronin or anything, like actual mainline IDW comic turtles. And it is the Loyal Subjects Best Action.
Yeah, so someone there, I've said this in another video or another podcast, someone there knows what they're doing because they're very smart to be like, okay, these guys are making toon-looking turtles. These guys are making turtles off the toys. Like, what can we do to be different? So instead of continuing to do and I mean, they are still doing the cartoon characters and stuff, but this is very smart because beating the other 2 brands to the punch on the IDW stuff, I feel like it's going to sell a lot better than it would have if like NECA started doing IDW figures, for instance, because now this is your only option to really get those figures. Because, Playmates is never going to do anything with those. So I don't know. Somebody there is smart. They might not be the best action figures like they boast, but they're smart. Like they're doing this in a smart way and trying to carve out their own little corner of the market. And I mean, I got to hand it to them. Like, they might not be for me. I don't know if I'll end up getting them. I'll see how they look in person because that's the other thing. I feel like the digital renders definitely looked a little bit better than the actual figure did on her. So, but I know, like you said, the Krang is like one of the best looking Krangs ever, and I've heard other people say that as well now. So, I feel like as they go on, they are gonna get a little bit better as time goes on. I feel like the figures will get a little bit better.
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the things that does limit the figures a lot is just that they all have to be that same height, regardless of if they should be shorter or taller. So a lot of the Casey, his head is like the size of like a pencil eraser. So it's like they're great figures. I actually think like for what they are, for $20, And for the scale that they are, they're pretty good figures, honestly. I think they're pretty damn good. Like if you don't have the money to pay, a kidney for every Super 7 figure, I think like these are fine. And I definitely think it's good, that they're going after IDW, because no one's, NECA's already doing Mirage, they're already doing Archie. No one's doing IDW. No one's doing Image, obviously, but like no one's doing IDW.
Well, they made an Image figure. They made that Image Casey. So yeah, they're like I said, they're doing stuff that nobody else is doing.
So like they're looking at like, okay, what eras of turtles are people not touching, or what types of turtles has nobody ever made a figure for, and now they're making figures for them. Yeah. So that's definitely a smart decision on their part, because I think like they have been struggling to be noticed as like a Turtles line for a while now, because I think a lot of people just think like, well, why the hell would I buy these when I can just buy NECA? I even saw, unfortunately, I have seen some comments that popped up about those the IDW comic turtles, of people saying like, oh, too bad these are, loyal subjects. Like, too bad these aren't NECA, because like they would only collect them if they were NECA. Like some people just don't like loyal subjects. But we'll see. I hope them the best. Like I said, I don't follow the IDW comics like that, so I don't really know that much about what I've heard about the IDW comics is just like the overall, like overarching keynotes of the story here and there. I will say the Turtles designs in IDW have never been my favorite. They feel like they're stuck in between being humans and turtles to me. Like they have this, like they have their faces are sculpted in a weird way. They're shaped in a weird way, kind of to me. But I think that's just me being too attached to the vintage designs. So they've never been my favorite designs, but they are very distinct looking. So I think it's really cool we're getting figures for them, because a lot of the types of turtles we get look like the 87 turtles and stuff. And it's good to get like a very different take on the turtles and get like an actual affordable toy line for that, because usually when you get artistic takes on the turtles, it's some statue that costs $400 or something. So getting a $20 figure of a totally unique, IDW design for a turtle, I think is a pretty good deal.
Yeah, and they're definitely based off like the early IDW run, because the turtles did shift a lot in the way they look over the 130 some going on 140 issues they've done now. Their look has changed a lot, and these are definitely based off of like the first few issues for sure, which is they're definitely like the most like edgy and aggressive looking that the turtles have looked in IDW. Say that's kind of what they look like whenever they do like crossovers. So like in Batman, that's kind of a little bit more what they look like too, and stuff. In Power Rangers, that's a little bit more what they look like. That's how I like them. I like they kind of have like the different colored or different like shaped bandanas, like they're kind of like cut up a little bit more. Yeah. It's something else I was gonna say on that. What the hell was it? Yeah, I can't remember what the hell I was gonna say. So we can move on to what is our last thing we need to talk about? Super 7?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Super 7, in like I knew this was gonna happen. I knew Brian Flynn was gonna do an interview with either the Fwoosh or Pixel Dan, and I knew it was gonna be a super softball interview, which of course is what it was. And I feel like he said a lot of things, but he didn't say a lot of things. It was a very stammery, just beat around the bush type of explanation for what was going on. I feel like a lot of people are kind of interpreting it different ways, because I feel like that's how it is. Like he didn't really directly say anything. He didn't directly say we could do Playmates stuff. He said we could get you the Rat King that's more of what you wanted. So yeah, that could mean a lot of things.
He did allude to the idea that they are trying to work things out with Playmates. He didn't say they have worked things out. He said we're working on things with behind the scenes. So either he's fairly confident that it will work out and they will be able to do an accurate Rat King, or he's saying, look, we're doing what we can, guys. Just leave us alone, and if we can't get it, we'll give you the closest Rat King we can legally give you. So yeah, that's kind of how I take it as. It's not a hard confirmation that they're going back to Playmates. I see it as, look, we're either gonna work things out and be able to go back to Playmates, best case scenario, or we're gonna have to create our own stuff that is hopefully as close to Playmates as we can legally do, and you guys would still approve of. There will be no more sexy Rat King. Sexy Rat King is gone. So
no, and that kind of speaks to a couple different things. One, it's cool that we do have a little bit of power. You know what I mean? Like we said our piece. Everybody was pretty much on the same page. And if you like that figure, like I do feel bad for you. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
you were definitely in the minority, but like I don't think you're wrong for liking. Again, it's not like I hated that figure. It's not like I thought it was like a terrible looking figure. It just wasn't at all what I wanted for my collection, and it just felt like just too much of a change for me. And that's just how I feel like the popular opinion pretty much was. I feel like this is like one of the few times where it seemed like almost everybody was pretty much on the same exact page with what they were thinking and feeling. Whatever happens with Wave 11 now, I feel like is going to be like the make or break for that line. Like it really will show what is going to happen. But now they don't have to show that, like I said, until probably next year, unless they start pumping out some other waves, which again, I think late fall will be the earliest we're going to get any of the waves that have been shown so far. I don't want to get my hopes too high, but I am at least happy that they're going to run it back and do something. Again, it can't really. I couldn't see it being worse than what I was shown. So, and again, it's not that I objectively think that figure's terrible. It was just the exact opposite end of the spectrum of what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, I was still gonna get it probably just because it's Rat King, and I thought that's the only Rat King we were gonna get. I do, in all honesty, as much as I did not like that figure, I do hope they still put at least one of those heads in as an alt head, because I did see some people actually like that figure. So it's not really fair for us to ruin it for the people who actually liked it. It wasn't quite a Sonic movie situation where the entire world was like, dear God, change that design. Like it was, there were still some people who liked the design they came up with. I do think it's a bit of a shame if they completely lose that. Something like maybe give the alt head of Sexy Rat King, but I'm never going to freaking use it if they do. But yeah, I do think, though, they might want to get Wave 11 announced sooner than later, unfortunately, just because I think in their mind, they have to restore the good faith for their brand. Like, I think they're like, we got to let people know that Wave 10 is not a sign of things to come. So they might, I would say by the end of the summer, they might show off Wave 11, but I could be wrong. I don't know what they're going to possibly do with it. I know Karai is now taking the place of Rat King in Wave 10, which is so weird. So it's like, so there was no legal issue with Karai. It's like they just decided to kick her out at first. I don't know why.
Like, it's just so weird that they posted the wrong promo image in the morning. Like that's just, I don't know. The whole Karai thing is like one of the most mind-boggling things to me. Like, just why did they take her out originally, and why are they just throwing her back in now? Super 7 is just a weird company. Like, at the end of the day, like, it's just, I feel like it's if somebody like me ran it. Like, it's not ran by who I think it could be ran best by. Like, I don't know. Like, they just do some weird stuff.
Definitely an interesting situation. There's a whole lot going on, and none of us really know about any of it. So
no, but the other weird thing is, he said they were gonna pull the other Rat King down, and they still haven't done that yet. He's still on their website. He's still on Big Bad Toy Store. So what are you going to do with these people that are paying for this figure right now? Are you just going to turn around and give them their money right back? Like, what's the plan here? It's very weird that interview was over a week ago at this point, and they're still selling that Rat King figure. So I don't know, man. Anything that comes from Brian Flynn's mouth, I just take with a grain of salt. Again, it's not. I'm not one of those people that's just like, he's a fucking liar and an asshole and a piece of shit. Like, no, I don't know the guy. Like, I just know that he just seems a little bit just. I don't know what the adjective I want to use is, because I don't know if shady is the right word, but like, flaky. I understand that there's some things he can't say, but I don't know. I just the delivery on everything he was saying was just weird to me.
Yeah, it was definitely a very flaky interview. I just don't know if they're still taking pre-orders for the Rat King. It's like, is that a down payment for the Rat King figure that we haven't seen yet, and they're just assuming you're going to like it? Because if someone paid for the last Rat King figure, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to want the new Rat King that they come up with. Like, they might want that sexy emo Rat King of Wave 10. So either they should just be refunding people, or they should just completely take it down and refund people. They should, no matter what, they should be refunding people. I don't know what they're doing then. I don't know if that's just going towards Karai. Now if you pre-ordered Rat King, you just get Karai instead. It's weird. It's definitely a very weird situation. I didn't know it was still up. I'm almost curious. I'm not going to pre-order it, but I'm curious if someone's checking out. If you go to check out, if it gives you like an error screen or something, or if you can actually place an order.
That I don't know, but I thought it was weird. It just seems like if you say you're going to take it down and it's not going to be in this wave and you're totally going to retool it, you would have done that like almost immediately. But again, I don't know what goes on at Super 7. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, and then last little bit of like housekeeping stuff, I guess, is shout out to Jake who let us know a couple things. So first of all, I always thought that Rex 1 was only in one episode of the animated series. So
me too.
I think he reappears, and I looked it up and I already forgot if it's season 4 or season 5, but he makes another appearance. Apparently Leonardo and April go get him to beat up something else. So I don't know why. I cannot recall this episode whatsoever.
I can't either. I'm pretty positive it's in season 5. I could be wrong though. I've been wrong before. But yeah, I mean, usually season 1 through 4 are the ones I remember the best because those are the ones I've watched the most. Yeah, those are the ones I saw the most as a kid. I watched them the most as an adult. Usually when I get past 4, that's when I'm sort of like, a little getting fatigued by the series at that point. I'm not paying attention to the episodes as much. The key ones stand out, like Michelangelo meets Mondo Gecko and stuff. But like, there's a lot of in-between ones that I just don't recall. And I feel like they did that a lot in seasons 5, 6, and 7, where they bring back a character, but it's just like for a weird little like one scene thing. It's basically just to tell you like, look, we haven't forgotten about them. We remember this character. Here they are. So I don't remember that one with Rex 1, honestly. I'm sure I've seen it because I've watched the whole show, but I don't remember the one with Rex 1. So thank you very much for letting us know that. But he also let us know the Toxic Crusaders game is not being developed by the same people who developed Shredder's Revenge. That's being, Retroware, I believe, is doing it. Yeah. They're the ones who did the AVGN Adventures and Assimilation, like the second one. That makes a lot of sense because, Toxic Crusaders is a Trauma property, and Lloyd Kaufman and James Rolfe are friends. And he's been on Angry Video Game Nerd and stuff. So it's like there's like a link between Cinemassacre and Trauma to a certain degree. And James has appeared in like the Return to Nukem High or Return to Nukem High Part 2 that Trauma put out. So like they're friends. They appear in each other's stuff and all. So I can see why one company would work on Cinemassacre stuff and then work on Trauma stuff. So thanks for clearing that up, though.
Yeah, for sure. And because I never would have guessed that because it does look so similar. And I went back and watched it recently again. I'm like, yeah, this definitely does look almost exactly like the same exact game.
I could have swore it was the same engine. They just dropped new animations into it and stuff. But no, apparently it's been in. He said it was in the works for like a year now. So they were working on that before Shredder's Revenge even hit the shelves. So so that. Honestly, that does actually at least make me a little more hopeful that they could be working on a sequel or DLC for Shredder's Revenge. Because I thought, as much as I am definitely going to play that Toxic Crusaders game, I was a little afraid. It's like, oh, maybe this means it's already the end of Shredder's Revenge. Yeah. But we could be getting more now if they're not busy with Crusaders. It's a totally different company. So
keep those fingers crossed, and hopefully we do get more.
Usagi for playable, next playable character.
This is April O'Neil, Channel 6 News, and you're watching the Party Wagon Podcast.
All right, so the main topic for this week's podcast is going to be the vintage 1988 Playmates toy line. Well, it started in 98. We're not just talking 98. We're going to be talking specifically only the main line, though. So no sublines, no like Sports Turtles, no Universal Monster Turtles or any of that. We're talking like the original characters, like the main line figures that got the, standard packaging. And this is a long time coming because this is probably, for both of us, the thing we like the most about Ninja Turtles. Just the vintage toy line is probably the thing we love most. Maybe not for you, but for me, that's my favorite part of Turtles. Yeah, it's just about time we started talking about something involving it.
Before somebody else goes, actually, I think you said 98 Turtles and you definitely meant 88 Turtles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, the 1990, we're talking about the 1997 Next Mutation toy line. I think I can safely say it's everyone's
greatest toy line of all time.
1988. Yes, I didn't even catch that. Thank you.
First 4 figures that I got when I got back into collecting were the 4 original 88 Turtles. Like they're my even my entire life, I was always just enamored with them. Anytime I ever saw them, I was like, oh my God, those are my favorite the entire time. So as soon as I'm like, all right, I have this nerd room, I'm going to play video games in here. What do I want to put in here? The first thing I ever bought off eBay was the 4 Turtles.
Oh, damn. Really? That's the first thing
That
you
was my
ever
first
bought off
ever eBay purchase ever.
Oh, shit. I don't even remember my first eBay purchase ever. I don't even remember. I think I tried to buy a poster for Night at the Roxbury, and I ended up never even getting it. But yeah, I mean, I've already done some videos. They're actually basically my most popular videos, just going through all of my childhood stories involving, this toy line, all the mainline figures, each mainline figure, all my memories with each figure and stuff. But I always have more to say about these, because these were, I mean, you go back to, me in 1989, 1990, 1991. My life was Nintendo Entertainment System and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And my favorite version of the Turtles, I love the video games, I love the show, I watched it all the time, I absolutely love the movie. But my favorite thing by far was the action figures. Nothing got me more hyped than getting a new action figure and looking at the cross-sell on the back of I used to call it the back of the box, even though it's not a box, but I used to always call it the back of the box, and just look at all the new figures coming up. And I would even take all of my figures and lay them out in a cross-sell pattern on my floor and call it a back of I'm gonna make a back of the box, and then I try to do crazy new stuff. I'd want to be oh, it's a new figure, so I'd take some old He-Man figure Hose Nose or Snout Spout, whatever the hell his name is, and throw him in there and be oh, that's a new mutant coming or something. But yeah, the nothing got me more hyped than these figures as a kid. These figures were just, they were more than just toys. They were just avenues for imagination. So
I'm glad that you kind of said that the way you did, because for me, the action figures were my canon. I thought the action figures were what everything was kind of based off. I think we've talked about this actually in our very first podcast we did, but I always assumed that if it was an action figure, that it appeared in the cartoon sometime, and I had just never seen that episode. I thought the action figures were the definitive Turtles characters, and when I got older and realized that half of them were just made up for the toy line, it blew my mind, because I'm no, these are Turtles characters. These were real. They were in the cartoon. I know they were, and apparently they all weren't, but I still kind of look at the original main line, those first 7 years of figures, I don't know, I think it's one of the greatest runs of just original characters in any toy line ever.
Yeah, they definitely had. So if you just go with this, original figures, the original heroes and villains, there's so much more dynamic posing and character design and stuff going on in those figures than you saw in even the best toy lines at the time. You had a lot of toy lines going on in the 80s. You had Thundercats, you had Silverhawks, you had He-Man, you had She-Ra, you had Ghostbusters, you had the real Ghostbusters, you had all these action figure lines. G.I. Joe, Transformers were probably the most unique, but you had all these action figure lines. But there was something about the Turtles. They just had their sculpts were so fluid and just so expressive, and there's something about the old ones. I love the new Ghostbusters toys, but they're very stiff. They're those classic Kenner Star Wars kind of figures. And He-Man, they had 3 bodies they just cycled through and all. The 4 Turtles, they share almost identical bodies. They have they swap legs and forearms and stuff here and there. But there's just something about the sculpt. You could just tell right off the bat that you had stuff like Bebop and Rocksteady and stuff. These guys looked nothing like anything else on a store shelf at the time. And even the way, I'm not the biggest fan of their Shredder, but even the way they went about designing their human character was so drastically different than anything we saw before, that, if any other toy line had done that Shredder, if any other company had done that Shredder, he just would have looked like He-Man with an armored head. He would have been that same pose of that squat buff dude, and he wouldn't have been in that crazy pose. He wouldn't have been all slender and stuff like they made him, and lean. They you could tell right from the beginning they were thinking outside of the box from all the other toy companies at the time.
Yeah, so you already made a couple comparisons that I really wanted to dive into. So I would say that Motu is the most comparable line kind of to TMNT. I would almost consider, and again, I think Varner Studios sculpted a lot of the figures for both of those lines. Yeah. So you can see how it was kind of that evolution, that next step. And you're right. That's what they did to be different. Motu was, like you said, like pretty much a mashup of the three main bucks. And then you might get new tools for some armor or something like that. But those would be reused too. So, I mean, like Mechaneck and Stinkor had the same chest armor on. They just painted it a different color.
Yeah. And aside from that, Stinkor's just mermans.
Yeah, exactly. He's a different painted merman. Exactly. He's a bunch of different tools that they already had mashed together to make a new character. And that was smart to do at the time because, again, you're saving tons of money on tooling. But I think you're right. I think that's what set the Turtles line apart, that every figure in the main line other than the Turtles were pretty much completely unique individual molds. They shared next to no tooling, if any, I don't think. And that was it. Every figure just looked so unique to whereas you get all the Motu figures together, and a lot of them, I mean, just look the same, just different colors. Yeah. And again, it's an excellent line. I would say it is also one of the greatest toy lines of all time. But
definitely,
I think that's why the Turtles came in and just stomped out all those other 80s lines, because G.I. Joe, I'm sure they retooled too. I can't think of it as much in my head right off the bat, but I know they did as well. Transformers was just doing their own thing completely. It's hard to argue if those really are action figures or if there's something completely different. But
no, technically the Mutating Turtles was basically their right. Transformers. And they even had the ones later on, like there was like fire, Don turns into a fire truck and stuff.
So yeah, well, we'll talk about all those another day too. Yeah, because, man, they went off the deep rails for that. Yeah, but the main line is just, I don't know. When I was a kid, that's what I was always the most stoked to see when I went over and played with somebody else, is what mainline figures they had, because essentially all like this subline characters, at first it was, you either had the Wacky Action, Storage Shell, the Turtles in Disguise, and those were kind of the main ones that were out at first, and I feel like everybody had those, but it was the mainline to where I didn't have a lot of villains. So if I went over to somebody's house and they had a ton of the villains, like I was super stoked to play with those.
Yeah, I was always, I have a lot of cherished memories and stuff attached to a lot of the subline turtle alts and stuff, the turtle variants. Like I loved a lot of them, but there was just no comparison how excited I was to get a new mainline figure. Like when I discovered, I didn't know who these characters were. I hadn't seen them in the cartoons yet or anything, but when I saw characters like Ground Chuck, Dirtbag, and Worm and stuff were out, I was like, I need these figures. I was just so hyped seeing them. It was definitely the biggest draw for me. If the line was mostly just sublines and they barely ever had unique characters, I think I would have fallen out of it pretty fast. But I do think also another reason why the Turtles, aside from these sculpts just being, so much more dynamic, so much more expressive than other things on the shelf, they're also just so unique because we didn't, in the 90s, the whole anthropomorphic human monster mashup, animal mashup thing, like mutant thing, became really popular because everyone was trying to rip off Ninja Turtles. But when the Turtles came out, your four main heroes don't even have human heads. They're like they're not even humans. They're these like weird turtle monster creature things. So I don't know why I'm calling them monsters, but they're like mutants, they're turtles. And even like, the Thundercats, they were cats, but they look like humans in makeup.
Yeah.
Basically. They look like they walked off the set of, the musical Cats.
Yeah.
So the original one, not the terrifying CG thing that came out a couple years ago.
Yeah. Never watched it. Never will.
I never will either. I've seen enough. But yeah, they were just very unique character designs. Like you didn't see, especially main characters like this very often. Like this is like what some obscure villain in like the Snake Men would be for He-Man or something, not like your lead heroes. So I just think they definitely caught everyone's attention. They just stood out. The green contrasting with the bright, colorful headbands and everything. Like, again, they just have so much attitude. They have so much personality. Each of their faces is so different and so expressive. Where, honestly, most of my childhood, I didn't even really notice the Turtles shared the same bodies, honestly, because I think like the arms and the torso are always the same, but even then the legs are like I think Leo and Don have the same legs, but I think aside from that, they're mostly unique. I think Raph has both of the flat feet.
Yep.
But then Mike, this like back leg, the arched leg foot for Mike is completely unique. No other turtle has it.
Yeah, because he's the only one that stands. Because Leo and Donnie stand the same way, like in profile, they're like angled the same way, and Mikey's angled the opposite way.
Yeah, so he has one. He's the only turtle with a unique leg, but
yeah,
still, there's like there's 4 interchangeable legs between the different turtles, and then they have different skin colors, different bandana colors, different types of belts, different sculpted belts, different weapons and everything. So it's like it really did a lot to make them just feel totally different from each other. Where I think it's honestly even a better retooling use than most Motu figures did.
Yeah, because as a kid, I didn't have a whole lot to compare to, but like you said, I always saw the turtles very differently, and it was mostly in their head sculpts. Like doing completely different not completely different expressions, different variations of the teeth showing or not teeth showing. Like that was really smart to not give them all the same head sculpt. I think that in the colors alone did so much to differentiate them. And then, like you said, you throw the belts on top of it with the letters. I never got bored of having multiple turtles. Like I was never like, oh, I got to get all 4 turtles. I'd be like, oh, I'm stoked to get all 4 turtles. So they really did master that. I think maybe the storage shells might be kind of tooled the same way. And other than that, they're pretty individualistic as the line goes on.
The only one I never noticed this as a kid, not to get too off topic, but the only one I think that was a retool that I never noticed as a kid was the Sewer Samurai Leo. They started with Raphael's original head sculpt and then just kind of sculpted a helmet onto it, like a samurai helmet. If you look at it, it's the exact same face.
Yep.
Which I never noticed that until people pointed it out on the internet. I'm like, holy shit, I never noticed that.
Same because he's got the teeth showing on both sides.
Yeah.
It's
like the exact same head. The one I did notice as a kid, there was the 5-year anniversary figure that was like the golden Leo statue, which I have.
It's like Donatello, isn't it?
It's just the original Donatello. They just black metaled him in gold. I guess just like, what are your biggest memories of the main line? Like what did you usually look forward to in them? What did you do with them? What did you hope for from the main line that you never had? Like what was, I guess this is a very big, vague question, but like what was the main line to you?
So this kind of comes back full circle to what I said about Mario 64 earlier. So the only mainline figures I had as a kid were the 4 turtles, Krang, and Slash. Other than that, everything I had was subline. So I got into the turtles, and that was when I was going to the babysitters at the time, and everybody there was super into turtles. And Pat and Cliff, the other 2 kids that went there, they had every mainline figure. So that's when I played with a lot of these villains and stuff like that I didn't get to play with at home. So that is what made me like lust after these figures when I got back into collecting. The first collector goal I had was to collect the first 4 waves of the main line, because those are the figures that were all baked into my brain from playing with them at the babysitters all the time. Because like I said, Pat and Cliff literally had almost every single figure from the first 4 waves. And when I got to go over there, those were the figures I always wanted to play with, because I could always play with my figures anytime. I could play with the turtles anytime. So I always wanted to play with all these villains. And at the time, Mutagen Man was far and away my favorite one, because they always had it filled up with water. So his bits were always sloshing around on the inside. And like, I don't know why. He was just always what I was drawn to. He's always who I wanted to play with. And then I know I've said this in another video too. They had Muckman. I fucking hated Muckman as a kid. I hated that trash can lid was always stuck to his foot. I thought that was such a stupid choice as a kid. I'm like, just give him a damn foot. I don't want this trash can stuck to it the whole time. But now he's probably one of my favorite Playmates figures. So it's weird how your opinions and stuff like that change, but also you just get smarter as you get older. But yeah, so a lot of my love for the main line is like that wanting of what I never had. Like that's really what made me so excited about it. And then even as I got back into it, I didn't know about a lot of the figures in the later waves. So like 5, 6, and 7, like some of those I only saw for the first time. Like I didn't even know about Scratch till I was an adult. I didn't know about Hotspot till I was an adult. So
yeah, your Pat and Cliff are basically my Robbie and Jude. So there was these two boys that like me and my brother would hang out with. They'd like come and sleep over and stuff. And they had every figure. Like anytime a new wave would come out, they just get the whole wave. Like their parents would just buy them every figure. And yeah, when I go over their house, like I'd want to play with, they'd have something we didn't have, like Creepy Crawling Splinter or something. And like we want to play with that because it's like, well, I can play with Ace Duck anytime at home. I don't give a crap about Ace Duck. Right? At home, I love them, but here it's like I want to play with the special stuff. I did have a lot of the figures as a kid. I will say, like Subline and Mainline, I had a lot of them. I think I definitely had a lot more than you had because, you know, for wave 1, aside from April, I had everybody. Which again, actually, I want to clarify that the waves aren't really official. I kind of like made them up when I did my Turtle Talk videos, but a lot of people don't consider wave 6 to be like, well, I consider wave 6 to be like an actual wave. Like they wouldn't put Shogun Shote in with like half court and stuff, but like I do because it just simplifies everything. But yeah, wave 2 we had like every mainline figure. Wave 3 we had every mainline figure. We had like we had every mainline figure except for April until we didn't have Zach the Neutrino also. And then by wave 6 we only had half court and half of Sandstorm, but I'll get to that later. Yeah, so we had most of them. We had a ton of the Turtle variants also and stuff, and some of the Bebop and Rocksteady variants, like some of the sublines. So I ate good as a Turtles fan when I was a kid. I got a lot of these figures. Definitely helped having an older brother who was into it also. So it's
because you got the double dip. That's how X-Men was for me and my little brother because he was into X-Men, so I had double the collection when that happened.
Yeah, exactly. That's just like, there's nothing better when you're a little kid than like having a sibling who's into the same thing and the same collection. Because it's like then when their birthday comes, it's like a birthday for you and stuff. Right. And on Christmas, you get like massive amounts of Turtle stuff. So Christmas was like, I remember like the best Christmas when I was little was like, we got so much Turtle stuff. It was like, I got Shell Slamming Mike. I got Slapshot Leo. I think that was the time I got maybe PandaCon, maybe. And my brother got like 3 figures. We got like this Rock'em Sock'em Robots, like Turtles thing. Oh. It was like Shredder and Mikey, I think, like punching them.
I think I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, I got like, I still have a photo.
Okay, not to get too sidetracked. You know what's fucking pissed me off about Rock'em Sock'em Robots? One was always better than the other. And whoever owned it always played the better one. And it pissed me off so bad. I fucking hate Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
It was always like that. But yeah, we got so much shit. I remember getting like, that was the year I got the glider and the blimp, and my brother got the turtle van. The year before we had gotten I got the Techno Drone. My brother got the sewer play set.
Dude, you guys had like fucking everything.
We had everything. Oh, that Christmas also, I got the Cheapskate 2, the one that had the big weird disembodied mic head on the front and stuff. And I got so much shit that Christmas, and I still have a photo of that morning. I'm so glad I do. It's like, because I don't have that many childhood photos, but I have a photo of my grandpa sitting there. And just like Shell Slamming Mike on the floor and like the Rock'em Sock'em Robots thing, a stuffed Santa raft that I had and stuff, and like just Turtles shit everywhere. And it's like, yes, that is what it was like. I'm so glad I have that photo. The mainline is what I cared most about, but we got almost all of it. So really, like we were saying earlier, to go back to what we were saying earlier, I always thought of the mainline as being like the action figure mainline as being like, these are the main characters of Ninja Turtles. And like you said, it wasn't until I got older. I remember like when I was in college, I made this little like book. I actually mentioned it in a video I made recently, a different book. I used to like take Goosebumps books and like draw stuff on paper and tape them over the Goosebumps and like tape over each page. And I'd make like a little guidebook for something. And I do it for video games usually, but I made one for like the Ninja Turtle toy collection. And it's actually kind of the beta version, like the prototype of what became my Turtle Talk videos, I guess. So I made this book. This is the ultimate guide to turtles. And, you know, this was like 2006. I was, you know, prime like edgelord cringe time, so I don't even want to know what kind of cringy shit is written in that fucking book. The quote unquote jokes are probably so embarrassing. Yeah, I remember making that. I was looking at stuff online. I'm like, okay, so when did this guy show up in the cartoon? And it's like, this guy never appeared in the cartoon. I'm like, oh shit! Like I just assumed. I was like shocked. Like, oh, Fugitoid was never in the cartoon and stuff.
That's
like
one that really blew my mind. Yeah, even just learning the origin of Fugitoid, how he wasn't even in a regular. I guess he was in. Yeah, he was created before the Turtles.
Yeah,
and he was in the original Mirage run. But other than that, he wasn't in anything until like was he in the 2003 series?
Yeah, he was in the 2003 series.
So that would have been his first cartoon appearance then ever.
Yeah, that was because the 2003 series was basically them trying to make like the most accurate depiction of the Mirage comics with like the personalities and flair of like the 87 cartoon.
Yeah.
And that was the most recent cartoon at the time. So I remember I had seen that Fugitoid was in there. I remember thinking like, Fugitoid? Why the hell is Fugitoid in the show? Of all the characters they could have picked. But I didn't know at the time, that Fugitoid was such a big deal. But yeah, it was crazy to find out that like tons of these characters weren't in the cartoon. Because the way I did it is I collected the figures, made up my own stories about them, and then waited to see them show up in the cartoon. Yeah. Where I think a lot of other people watched the cartoon and then wanted to buy the characters they liked from the cartoon. So for me, it was the complete opposite. So yeah, I just always assumed all these characters were in episodes. I just missed the episodes they were in.
Yeah, that's how I always thought too. And even going back and watching it, so like Muckman and Mondo Gecko don't appear till like seasons 5 or 6, I think, for the first time. Yeah, those are ones that really blew my mind. Like when I went and watched through, I remember watching the first few seasons. I'm like, how have these guys not shown up yet? And it was very surprising that they were later. So they would have been figures well before they were actually in the cartoon. They were definitely chicken before the egg there.
I don't remember because they had to have been before the cartoon appearance. Because I remember already knowing who Mondo Gecko was, having his figure and loving it and being so hyped to see him when the episode debuted. Yeah. Season 5, they were Saturday mornings then. They weren't afternoons anymore. And I feel like season 5, I think it wasn't too long after. I think it was still the same year. They were belting out those seasons fast as hell. Well, but I think it was.
I think season 5 would have been 92, maybe, because it started in 87, right?
It started in 87, and
so it would have been 91 then. Yeah, so it probably would have been the next year then after that figure came out.
Call me crazy. I may be wrong, but I think they didn't come out yearly. I think there actually was some overlap. I think it was still 1990 that season came out. I could be wrong. I mean, I'm going back like 30-year memories here. So. But I feel like season 5 is when they really started just basing the cartoon designs on the action figures, because Mondo Gecko, he more or less just looks exactly like Mondo Gecko. Like he's just, the Playmates design, just much less detailed, and Muckman, same thing. Whereas you look at Slash in season 4 and Ray in season 4, and I know Ray, there was like some, complaints about the Archie team saying that wasn't the same character, didn't want him to look like the character, but it just seemed like the characters before then, there was a lot of liberties taken, where season 5, they were just like, okay, we're just doing the toy line because this toy line is hot, so we're just going to keep doing it. So
it always kind of was, especially at first, because like Fugitoid was a comic book character. Clearly Bebop and Rocksteady, they were specifically from the cartoon. And then I feel like there was some characters that were just straight up pulled out of the Archie line too. Like, and I didn't know about any of that either, because I didn't really know about Archie books either. So I didn't know that the actual Man Ray that actual Ray Fillet is based off of was the Archie character and not the stupid one in the cartoon. And same with Slash. Like, oh man, was I bummed the first time I saw Slash in the cartoon. I was like, I fucking hate this guy. How is this figure so cool?
Yeah.
And then this guy's so dopey. But I feel like he was probably based. Did that figure come out before the Archie Slash did?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you, actually. I couldn't tell you when it came out, but I know the figure came out in 1990, but I don't know when he appeared in Archie. Again, I'm not like super knowledgeable of Archie. I'm like a very loose.
It's definitely what I know the least about, I would say, out of any, other than maybe like the 2003 cartoon. I couldn't tell you much about, but yeah, I don't know really dick about the Archie run.
Yeah, I'm not overly familiar with it, but I know that the figure came out in 1990, and I know that his episode came out in 1990. So
Okay. Let's kind of like chronologically go through. So I know you said like there's not official waves, but I always kind of look at it as whatever the stamp is when the figure first came out. That's kind of how I group them. So I group them by year, the 88, 89, 90. That's how I've always grouped them. And I'm pretty sure that's the same thing you do too, right?
Yeah. The only one I don't really is Wave 6, because Wave 6 is like some are 93, some are 94. It's like all over the place. So but it's like there's like 4 figures or something in 93. So it's like, okay, I'm just gonna throw the 2 ones from 94 in with 93.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I do, wave 1 is the 88 toys, wave 2, 80, 89, wave 3, 90, and so on. So
yeah, so let's start with the first 10 back characters. So clearly you're going to start off with the 4 turtles. You're going to start off with the main bad guys. So you got Bebop, Rocksteady. Splinter was a good throw, and then I feel like April was just kind of like, okay, she's definitely the other character that's on the most on the screen, so let's go with her. So it was a very, very like safe run of characters to go with. But I mean, other than April, I mean, they're all pretty much bangers. You know what I mean? They came out swinging on that first wave too.
Yeah, I think definitely Splinter and Shredder are the next most lackluster.
Yep.
But they're still pretty awesome. Like as much as I made fun of the Shredder figure in my video about like the expression on his face and everything, but he's still an awesome figure, honestly. And he's like I said, he's just so much more creative than what any other toy line would have done with that character. So yeah, really, April is the standout. Just like this is the only bad thing in this wave. And then she's not terrible. She's just kind of on par with like Tila and Evil Lynn and stuff from Motu. She's like not any better than those figures.
Yeah, and when I was a kid, I don't know. I was never drawn to female figures or characters ever. Like I was always like, I don't want to play with a girl toy. Like that's how I always felt about it. Like, yeah, it never appealed to me. So I never had an April as a kid. Oh, I did have Splinter. I forgot to say that. He was another mainline figure that I did have. So I guess I did have Splinter. And yeah, I would definitely say Splinter, he's got like one of the weirdest designs because he just has like his hips are just kind of on a swivel. They're not really on the ball joint that the rest of them are. And for whatever reason, every kid took off that freaking robe and lost it. So half of the Splinters you'll ever find are naked Splinters. Yeah. But it's cool that they did come with soft goods in those first waves. Shredder had a soft goods cape. And again, a lot of people lost that too. So you'd end up with a shirtless Shredder. And then Splinter came with that robe. So that first wave, they really did put quite a bit into as far as like tooling and accessories. Like you got the weapons racks and stuff. And it is just like, there's a reason those 10 back figures are so iconic. Like it just, I don't know, it's just such a good start to the line.
They definitely did kind of like the soft goods was just another, and like all those things, the weapon racks, everything, just the excessive amount of accessories you got with each figure, the belts and everything was just kind of a good way of showing you right off the bat, like this is going to be a deluxe toy line for the time. And I will say that again, Shredder and Splinter always ended up, robeless. At least Shredder looks like badass with his shirt off. He's like showing off his guns and stuff. I always kind of thought it was funny how Splinter doesn't look like a mutant. He just looks like a rat. A rat. So everyone, like, they had all these cool mutant characters, and then they just had some big naked rat in their collection. It's just so weird.
Like that topic you touched on earlier, to where these are the first like good guy characters that look more animal than human, as opposed to Thundercats. Yeah, that was like the best example to use, because even though they're supposed to be lions or tigers or whatever the hell they are, they look much more human. Whereas all of Splinter, the Turtles, even Bebop and Rocksteady, but they're bad guys, they look like animals that just happen to be bipedal.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that became so common after Turtles with like Biker Mice from Mars and Street Sharks and all that stuff, even the Battletoads. But the heroes who looked like that were not a thing until the Turtles came out.
Yeah. So definitely smart move to, I mean, of course you're going to lead with the Turtles, but yeah, I don't know. Like I wish I could have been there to where I was old enough to where I didn't know about the Turtles and I could just walk into the toy store the first time and be like, what the hell is this? Like, I just would give anything to have had that feeling.
Yeah. I remember the first time I ever opened a Turtles toy. It was on my birthday. It was my 3rd birthday, and I opened the package, and it was Leonardo. And it looked awesome. I was instantly in love with it. I was like, this is the coolest figure I've ever seen in my freaking life. But it was just weird. You don't even read Teenage Mutant Ninja first. You just see Turtles written in this weird green muscly font. And you're just like, what the fuck am I looking at? Like, what is this thing? But it's so cool at the same time. I guarantee you, in the original board pitch meeting, where everyone's sitting around talking about, like imagine like in the movie Big, where they're like pitching ideas for toys, and they're pitching this. I guarantee you there was that one dude in the room who's like, no one's gonna fucking buy these. Like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Are you kidding me? And he was wrong. He probably got fired.
Right.
I guess we have to move through these waves, somewhat quickly because there's so much to talk about. So I think we've covered most of wave 1 by like just everything we've been saying. So I guess let's start diving into where we started getting not the main key characters. We started getting more of like the crazy wacky characters that would keep this franchise going at that time with wave 2, which was 1989.
I've always kind of lumped waves 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 together. Like, I feel like wave 2 just feels like okay, this is a success, we're going to branch out from this. And not to get too far ahead, but wave 3, they kind of really amped it up. But the wave 2 figures, like if you set them side by side next to wave 1, they fit together very well. Like, they're a little bit more tame. They have really cool figures. I mean, like Rat King is an awesome figure. Usagi is an awesome figure. They have awesome figures, but they're definitely still a little bit more like, I guess, like toned down. But like, it sounds like I'm saying it like it's a bad thing, but I don't mean it to be that way. You know what I mean? But they're definitely, it's one of my favorite waves, but from what we were going to see next, I'd say it's a little, like I said, just a little bit more plain and mellow compared to what was coming next. But it gave us some of the best figures like Baxter, Rat King. You got Trag, or what frog? Not Tilla. Genghis Frog. Like, just such good side characters, and we got 10 of them. Like, they didn't even like short us. It was an entire wave of these good side characters.
Yeah, we got Casey Jones and Krang. We got 2.
Oh yeah, leaving out Casey. Yeah, one of my favorite. Krang was one of the ones I actually had.
Yeah, it was. It's definitely like these are all the mostly. Oh, we got Metalhead. That's an awesome figure.
Yeah.
These are like the characters everyone thinks of after the main characters. Most people think of Casey before these, but like these are like the supporting Turtles characters. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. Where wave 1 and 2 are like a set, and wave 3 and 4 are a set, because wave 1 and 2, they're still figuring out the line. Like you said, they're still like not as fluent and extreme and exaggerated, or like there's some gross out ones like Rat King, but they got way crazier with the gross out stuff. The colors are more muted. Like waves 3 and 4 just had all these neon colors and all, and like just crazy sculpts where you could tell like the sculptors were just given free reign to do whatever the hell they wanted by 3 and 4. And wave 2 is just, there's still some experimentation going on. They don't know exactly what they want to do. You have like those weird ball joint arms for Ace Duck. You have like the weird bandolier belt things for Genghis and Ace, where they don't work very well. They're really hard to get together and everything.
And I feel like they're like offset too. Like there's not, I don't really know. I've never been able to figure out what way you're supposed to have their belts on, really. I don't know if the stuff's supposed to be off to the side or if it's supposed to be behind them.
Yeah.
Or where the belt's actually supposed to ride on them.
See, I originally always thought, try to put them on as belts at the waist.
Yeah.
Someone in my video way back, like, 2 years ago when I first put those videos, gave me a comment saying that like Ace Ducks is supposed to be like a bandolier. It's supposed to go around his chest.
Yep, I've seen that. And then he actually has the egg grenades across his chest, which does make more sense to me than having it that way. I still don't have it that way, but I get that.
It's hard to do though with the wings on. It's definitely hard to do. But either way, just getting those belts together is just such a pain in the ass. And like every belt was kind of handled differently, which is so weird because the 4 turtles in wave 1, their belts were perfect. You just pop them in and out. So I don't know why they were trying all these crazy new ideas with belts, with like buckles and all this stuff, but it's still a very experimental wave. I mean, and I think like they didn't quite figure out the direction they were truly going to take the whole line in by that point, but they were getting there, and they're still awesome figures. If the whole line had stayed in this style, it still would have been an awesome toy line. But wave 3 just upped the ante so much. So wave 2 is still awesome for what it is. I'd say the biggest disappointment of a figure is for me still Leatherhead, because
easily,
like, what the hell is that Leatherhead figure?
Easily. And again, It's not even so much the design of the figure, it's just why the hell is he so puny? Like he's just so small. He just doesn't even look like he fits in with the line. He looks like he's pulled out of something else.
He does. And I mean, again, like the design is cool, but I still always just felt like he has these really short arms and legs, and he's practically like his face is on the floor. It's like, again, with Splinter, I feel like, he's a mutant, right? Like he's not just an alligator wearing boots. Like he's supposed to be half human, kind of. So like, I just find it weird that he's just this tiny little guy. He's like a little gremlin, and everyone else is towering over him. Where it's like, you look at the artwork on the package, and he's like humongous. He's like tripping a turtle who's like half his height or something. And it's like, where the hell is this toy? This isn't what you gave us. So yeah, he was always a disappointment, but I still had a ton of fun with him as a kid anyway.
Yeah, I would say he was definitely like kind of their first swing and a miss as far as like a mainline figure goes. But I mean, if you're batting 19 for 20 to start with, that's pretty damn good. So, because I mean, he really is out of the first. Again, I still think April is just kind of inherently a lame character, but for the most part, those first 20 figures were all, or at least first 19 of them were bangers.
Yeah. I think he's a little bit more disappointing than April too, because I didn't care about an April figure when I was a kid. I didn't want an April figure. But like Leatherhead, you watch him in the cartoon, you're like, oh, this guy's freaking cool. Like, you want a cool action figure of that guy, and you just don't get one. So
yeah, so just as we're kind of crossing over to waves 2 and 3. So a thing that was different from wave 2 and 3. Wave 2, they kind of started doing like the thing where Rat King had like the rats on him, and Trag had like the spider and stuff like that. But the trope that wasn't really there yet in wave 2 was the asymmetrical like feet and arms and stuff like that. And wave 3 is where we kind of started to see some of those tropes happen, and those would really last. Like the feet one is the big one, to where it's like, okay, going forward, we're not going to make a single figure that has symmetrical feet. One's going to have one shoe on, the other one's not going to. So I mean, Slash is one that comes to mind that actually does have symmetrical feet. But after that, a lot of the figures, I mean, that's like one of the tropiest things about it is that asymmetrical foot pattern for sure. That's what I always think of when I think of waves 3 and 4.
Yeah. I mean, even a more simple figure like Mondo Gecko, it's like on one hand, he has the red fingerless glove. The other one, he doesn't. On one knee, he has a skull. The other one, he has the red spike and everything. Right. They were all about the lack of symmetry. And it was just to show off their sculpting chops. It was just to show off, like, look at how freaking good we are at sculpting these. But I think a lot of it added a cool feel to it also, because these are mutated characters who were either animals that got mutated to become half human, or humans who got mutated to become half animal. So a lot of times they'll have a more animalistic foot on one side and then a more human foot on the other. Like Scratch is the example that's popping in my mind right now, where the naked foot, the bare foot, I should say, is like a cat foot. It has like the heel up in the air and it's got like the claws. But then there's other ones like a normal human foot in the boot. So it's like, he didn't mutate as nicely as the turtles did. Like he's like somewhere in the middle. So I kind of liked that. It adds almost like backstory to the character when you look at them. And that's one of the things that's so great about wave 3 and wave 4 and stuff, is you look at these figures and there's so much detail on them that you can start creating who this character is in your mind just looking at the figure. It's just the attention. I don't know how they were able to. I got them right here. Got a Muckman. I don't know how the hell they were able to sculpt all this little crap in this figure. Like these figures in wave 3. Because I'm going to say right now, wave 3 is the best wave in the entire line. I don't even think most people would debate that. I think most people would agree. But I don't know how they were able to do that level of detailing in wave 3. I still don't. But it's amazing. It was like, obviously, I'm not going to say it's like I'm not going to say it's like 4 Horsemen like level sculpting. But for the time, for kids action figures, these were like the 4 Horsemen figures for kids action figures at the time, basically.
Yeah, because I mean, like you said, going back to the line we compare it to, Motu, all the bucks are essentially just smooth skin. They have different feet. For the bad guys have like the webbed feet. The good guys have regular feet and stuff like that. But there wasn't like a lot of like actual sculpting into the characters themselves. Most of your stuff that you got was like in their armor. That's really what set them apart. But these guys, like you said, Muckman, he is sculpted every single square inch of that figure has a line cut in it or something. I mean, you would have taken forever to do that with clay. And this is where the line, the sculpting even starts to get ahead of like what they're capable of with their paint apps and stuff like this. Because this is where you can kind of start to notice that like, okay, these sculpts might be a little too ambitious and we can't even paint all this stuff on them. But that's not really the worst problem in the world either, because we got like wave 3 is also my favorite wave. And it really is, like you said, where they just like got to let loose. And they're like, okay, you guys are clearly, you know what you're doing. We're going to let you do whatever the fuck you want. Just make some cool ass action figures. And that's what started happening with wave 3. And I think that is what makes wave 3 just so much. That's where I feel like it really starts to pop. And that's where this line like does get wild, is these incredibly detailed sculpted figures. And wave 3 is so good that I often forget. I always think that Wingnut and Scumbug are in wave 4 because I don't know why, but I just can't imagine that there's all these great figures in this wave, but there are. Like, it's 13 figures and they're all bangers. Like, it is just such a great wave of these. Again, it's what kind of took the Playmates line into that next level was wave 3 for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. I think wave 4 is like an extension of wave 3 to a certain degree. So I can definitely see like mixing that up, especially if you didn't have them. Like I'll always think of Wingnut as wave 3 because, you know, I had them as a kid, but someone who didn't know, I could easily see them assuming that, you know, Wingnut was wave 4 and Worm was wave 3 or something. So it is just insane, like how they were able to just level up like that and just do something that no other action figure line was doing at the time. And even like they tried a lot of stuff. There was, you know, not getting into the subline, there was crazy stuff happening in the subline at the time. They tried the Mega Mutants, which led with like Killer Bee and Needle Nose, which I didn't have as a kid. But yeah, I think like even as a kid, you know, you're just playing with cool looking characters and stuff, and you're just collecting cool looking characters and looking at the sculpts and all. We're not like thinking of it from a design standpoint or a product standpoint, but even as a kid, you can kind of feel you're holding something more premium when you're holding a wave 3 figure than you are any action figure you owned before it.
Yeah, and I think because again, like the other two things that I would have been playing with the most at the time were G.I. Joe, Real Ghostbusters, and I always kind of omit this, and I don't know why, but I had a lot of Kenner Batman stuff too. Like I did have a lot of those figures. And you're right, the Turtles, I mean, they just stood out so much more. Like those other characters just seemed like basic kind of compared. Like they're just, everything was smooth on them. Like I said, it's just, it is the texture, it's the feel of them. And I've said this before, like when I hold Space Cadet Raph in my hand, for whatever reason, that's a figure that most of my memories are triggered by the way it feels. Like I holding that figure in my hand, he just feels very unique to me. And that's really where my memories come from, is just the way his sculpt feels. And yeah, it is just such a great part of this line that just, it really hadn't been, at this point, there was no peers to it. Nobody else, even the copycats hadn't even hit what they've been doing at this time.
Oh, not even close. Yeah. I know what you mean too about that. I remember when I was opening, I got Classic Rocker Leo back like 3 years ago from a toy store, and the plastic bubble was damaged, so I just opened them up because he was sealed, but it was so busted. It was like the card back was all busted. But smelling how the fresh figures smell was just like boom, just like going back, remembering opening like, you know, so many figures for the first time and getting that new toy smell. And just like, I mean, toys don't smell like that anymore, but you know, that classic, like plastic, like you said, like a lot of the things, the way they feel, the way they smell, the way they look, it just brings you back to when you're a kid. And yeah, I don't know. I have so many good memories attached to wave 3, probably more than any other Turtles line. And I mean, I'm not going to get into detail about each one, but you can watch my Turtle Talk videos on my channel if you want to. I have like multiple stories attached to each figure. So it's like, I just have so many memories attached to every figure because I don't know, like they just stood out. Each one stood out. Each one was like a big deal. There really weren't, I would say for me, the closest thing to a figure that was just whatever was Pandacon from wave 3. But even then, he's a cool figure. For me, he didn't really hit the mark as much as all the crazy stuff we were getting in that line.
Yeah, because he feels like he would have fit in better with wave 2 almost. You know what I mean? He's just a little bit more plain Jane kind of like, as opposed to, because again, it was just such a strong wave of bright, vibrant figures and colors, and the colors are really, I think you might have said something about that earlier, but wave 3 is where the colors really started to ramp up too. I feel like it is where you started to get those more neons and stuff like that. And I think you mentioned it in one of your videos, like Napoleon, his colors compared to Genghis. Like Genghis is much more 80s to where Napoleon feels a lot more 90s.
Yeah, I said that. I remember that because, you know, they both have pink and yellow pants, or shorts, but, you know, Genghis is like, it's just a normal magenta and yellow, whereas like, you know, Napoleon, he has like neon yellow and hot pink, and he's got this neon green shirt, whereas Napoleon just had like a sky blue shirt and stuff. So it's like they basically just like, let's take that radical 80s color and make it 90s extreme. Like kind of how they went. And it was awesome. I just think of like, you know, the color of wave 3, the colors in wave 3, like all that neon orange on Ray Fillet that pops against like the turquoise and everything. And I just think of those bright neon colors of those and like Nerf guns from the time and stuff.
That's what exactly. That's why I think I like this line so much at that time, because that's what the 90s were, is bright, obnoxious colors all the time.
Bright, radical, tubular, eye-piercing neon colors. And just like crazy designs too, just like crazy, like, you know, there'd be like 90s gun toys that'd be like, it would be camouflage, but it'd be like neon yellow and green or something. It's like, well, you're not camouflaging with shit with that, but it looks so cool. And most of all, it looks so early 90s. There was like a time like very end of the 80s, very beginning of the 90s, the short little window where the world was just like this special way that it wasn't later in the 90s and it wasn't earlier in the 80s. And the Turtles, more than anything, just really, you know, harnessed like that energy from that time.
I know exactly what you're talking about. So kind of going off what you said earlier too, to kind of what leads into this, wave 4 does feel like that extension. All the colors are the same. All the asymmetry is the same. All the wild designs are the same. But it almost just seems like they're like, okay, we have 20, or how many is it? 13 and 11. I think wave 4 is 11 figures. We have 24 figures. We're going to put our best out in wave 3 and then kind of save the rest for wave 4 with a couple exceptions. I mean, like Ground Chuck and Dirtbag are cool figures. Worm is my favorite figure far and away from that wave. And again, it's just because that blue, like that is just such a cool blue and green combo. Like he just, even in a line where figures are loud and bright, he stands out so much in that wave to me because nobody else really has that color scheme.
Yeah, nobody does. Like, I mean, like he is probably one of the craziest, if not the craziest looking figure in the entire line.
Yeah.
He's up there with probably like Mutagen Man, Muckman, but even then Muckman, he has like the kind of the neon, you know, bodysuit a little bit to a certain degree, the orange, but like Worm is just so bonkers. And I mean, I remember the first time I got him, I just loved that character. And I just thought he was such a cool design. I was so disappointed he was never in the show. And I mentioned it in my video that I did years ago that they had the animated commercial for that line of action figures. And they showed an animated clip of Worm. And I thought that was from the show. I didn't realize the animations were made up for the commercial. So I was like, where's that freaking episode? I want to see that episode. And I never saw it because it wasn't real. But yeah, like wave 3, I do think definitely, like you said, it's a little more lackluster than wave 2. It's still the same bar of quality. It's just like the character choices aren't as interesting because they just blew their load in wave 3 and just made like crazy figures. So in wave 4, I feel like it's smaller than that. I feel like it's noticeably smaller than wave 3. Because you have Ground Chuck, Dirtbag, Chrome Dome, Walkabout, Sergeant Bananas, Worm, Tattoo, Zach, and if you want to add Toka and Razar, which
I consider Toka and Razar to be in that wave because they don't come on the movie star packaging. So I've always considered them to be part of that wave. They come with the basic brickback packaging. And to me, they look more like their cartoon version, even though they came out later, than they do the movie version to me.
I think it's more when they were in the cartoon, they were based off the toys is more what it was. But no, you actually could get them in movie star packaging because the ones I got were in movie star packaging. Yeah, they had, I think later on they re-released them on the regular packaging.
Okay, I did not know that. So yeah, that's a surprise to me.
Yeah, so they were called like they were supposed to be part of the movie star line, but to me, I just think of them as like, they're all the other movie star versions are like alternate versions of characters we already have. Movie star turtles, movie star foot soldiers. Whereas like these are just new characters, Toko, Razar. So I just think of them as being part of it. So if you do that, there's 10 in the wave,
Okay,
which is considerably less than the last one. And of 2 of those are like maybes, but I still consider them to be part of the line.
Yeah.
Or the wave, I should say. Yeah, definitely there's ones like, I don't think anybody's favorite, not saying he's bad, I like the toy, but I don't think anyone's favorite Turtles toy is Walkabout.
No, I mean, he was one I didn't even know about until I started collecting as an adult. He's one I never knew anybody that had him. I don't even remember him from the card back, so he's very forgettable.
I had him. He was mine, actually, as a kid, but he wasn't my brother's. He was actually mine. But yeah, he was cool. I liked like the crazy bright orange and stuff, but he's just, that was also the point where a lot of these characters weren't appearing in the cartoon anymore. So, you had it in one episode, or I guess 2 episodes, but one major special, you had Ground Chuck, Dirtbag, Chrome Dome, and for some reason, a little bit of Tattoo in that weird moment. Aside from that, though, I mean, Zach obviously had been in the cartoon a lot, but I didn't even have that figure as a kid. So you had Sergeant Bananas, Worm, Walkabout, all these characters who just don't appear in the cartoon. So it's like, at the time, I know Worm was an Archie and everything. At the time, I didn't know that. I didn't know about, everyone now is like, well, actually, Gorilla in the magazines. Like, no one knew about that back in the day. Like, so like, I just thought like, oh, these are just like they're just starting to like not do as much with their characters. And then, Wave 5 came out and eventually Anthrax showed up in the cartoon and Murdude was in the cartoon, which I didn't know either of them were when I was a kid, but like none of those guys showed up in the cartoon. So it kind of seemed like this was the last wave that had any characters that mattered. And even though I loved the characters that came later, it's harder to stay invested in something when all they are is a figure and you're not seeing them in video games. You're not seeing them in the cartoon and stuff. And whereas like Ground Chuck and Dirtbag, I feel like are those last New Mutants that they like pushed really hard. Yep. They really pushed them to be like, this is the new Bebop and Rocksteady, which they're nowhere near as memorable as Bebop and Rocksteady, but they are really cool. I do love Ground Chuck and Dirtbag and Chrome Dome too. Like those 3, they were the ones that like just got all the push for that wave. But after that, they really just kind of stopped like really pushing the mutant characters, and they were really just being made up for the toy line.
Yeah, so because even like Metalhead, I mean, he was in the cartoon and stuff like that. Like you said, Ground Chuck and Dirtbag, they didn't put it until a little bit later. But Ground Chuck was in the Manhattan Project, like we talked about earlier. He definitely was a character they were trying to push a little bit more. And I feel like after Wave 4 is, like you said, we got Anthrax, and he's a cool looking figure. Dr. L was pretty cool out of that wave. Murdude is like one of my favorite figures, but I feel like Wave 5 is kind of where the main line started to fizzle a little bit, and it almost got a little bit too plain. I don't know if that's what I want to say, but it just didn't have the same attitude that Waves 3 and 4 did.
Definitely. Just the way we were saying Wave 1 and 2 were a set, Wave 3 and 4 are a set, Wave 5 and 6 are a set, I think, too. Yeah. But there is more of a difference from Wave 5 to Wave 6. I feel like Wave 5 is the in-between of de-evolving from Wave 4 to Wave 6. It's like a transitionary wave. And as a kid, I was loving those when those were coming out. I loved Dr. L. I loved Scaletail. I loved Anthrax. I really liked those. I wanted Hothead so bad. I didn't have Hothead as a kid, but I had Murdude. I never liked King Lionheart. I always thought he was lame.
And I don't know why. He's one of like the most just plain looking ones to me too. Like, again, I feel like he almost could have been more if he didn't have the like royal theme, like a Wave 2 figure almost.
Yeah.
But he does have the asymmetrical feet, I think.
He does. Yeah, he has like one naked leg and then like one armored,
yeah.
But then Monty Moose is like, he's really cool. He's a really cool design, but something about just like that primary red and the primary blue, and he's dressed up like that Dudley Do-Right. He just seems like such a stereotypical, like this is what any cartoonist would draw if you told him to draw a moose guy. Like,
exactly. He looks just too much like a Mountie Moose and not enough like a Ninja Turtles character.
Yeah. And I think they kind of got on this high of like, we'll just do every animal and we'll just put a different theme for each animal. rather than making them feel like actual characters.
Yeah.
So I think like I do like them. I do wish, Monty Moose was in the cartoon. I do wish that, even King Lionheart was in the cartoon, Scaletail was in the cartoon. I do wish Antrax was actually like had an episode for himself instead of just him and Scumbug just being like, oh, hey, here are these guys. Apparently we know who they are, but they never appeared before. And they're just like ensemble. It's just to get like more recognizable villain faces in an episode and get kids to watch it. Like that isn't really a Scumbug or Antrax episode. So Murdude's the only one from that wave who got his own episode where like Michelangelo meets him in the sewers and everything. And it's so weird. I didn't even know that episode happened when I was a kid, to be honest. I was like really not watching the cartoon once I realized that like none of these figures were ever going to be in the cartoon and stuff. It's just so weird because it's like everyone, makes fun of the 87 cartoon in retrospect. We covered this in the first episode. It's like it was just a toy commercial. All the 87 cartoon ones is a big toy commercial, but it's like I wish it was more of a toy commercial because like there just came a point where we're getting these toys and they're not connected to anything. Like there's no other version of Ninja Turtles where you are going to find Monty Moose outside of the action figures. And to me, these figures were everything when I was a kid. Like the figures were my main obsession. So it was really disappointing that it was like, oh, you're not getting any more of these action figure characters in the the games or the cartoon or any of that stuff, or obviously not the movies, but as a kid you think anything's possible. So yeah, like I said it in my video, my brother and I used to lie when we were little kids. If one of us woke up before the other one,
the weirdest dynamic I've ever heard.
We'd wake up the other one. We'd be like, I got up at 5 a.m. and I turned on the TV and there was a special episode of Ninja Turtles and Dr. L was in it and he beat up everybody and he was the strongest character ever. He was so cool. He just picked up a building and all this stuff. And obviously we knew the other one was full of shit. We didn't believe the other one. But we just played along with it because we wanted it so badly. It was more fun to pretend it was real than admitting the fact that it's just a piece of plastic and it's never going to be anything more. So like we wanted those. We used to do that with the Mario cartoon too. We used to lie and say we saw like all these crazy enemies.
Cool things were there.
But yeah, like we used to do that, and I remember we used to play these things with my brother and my sister who didn't really seem as into it. She was just doing it because she didn't get along with our older sister at the time. So she played with us out of like rebelling. We would play these things called Mario movies where I said like we'd act out pretending we were acting out a movie of just all our favorite characters, like Mario characters or Ninja Turtle characters or whatever the hell NES game we were playing that week. Like, Simon Belmont might show up or something, or like, Mega Man, whatever characters game we were playing that week, we'd like put them into this thing we'd act out. And we would, after a while, it devolved into us just, okay, whatever toy we got recently, we just act out as that character and say he's unstoppable and he's like the greatest thing ever and he's so tough. So it's like we just wanted to see these characters so badly. And even into Wave 6, I remember my brother telling me some horse shit about like a half court episode and all this stuff, and
came and dunked on those fools.
Yeah, exactly. And you could always tell we were making them up because in our episodes we would make up, we'd always mention how the Bebop and Rocksteady were really tough. Like they would punch the turtles through a wall or something. It's like if you're actually watching the show after season 1, it's like Bebop and Rocksteady are a fucking joke. So
right.
Even in the first season, they're introduced just ramming heads and knocking each other out. It's like the first time the turtles fight them, they just knock each other out. So it's like we just wanted them to be so much more badass than they actually were. But yeah, I think that was part of the fun of Wave 5 was like it got our imaginations going, I guess. But it was also part of the disappointment. It was definitely the beginning of the end. And I don't think we were aware of it at the time, but it was subconsciously settling in. And we were realizing that this was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, and for me, I was, like I said, the few figures that I had, because this had to have been around the same time, maybe even a little bit before I was out of the line, because I'm pretty sure the last figures I got were the third movie Turtles, and that would have been 93. So I think that would have been...
That's Wave 6. That was
Wave 6, yeah. So,
yeah.
But again, I was so like unaware of these mainline figures, or I just didn't care. Like I don't even remember them or the card backs much or anything, because Like that, I was collecting like the sewer spitting turtles and stuff like that, like the most neon bright colored turtles I could find.
The sewer spitters were awesome, but yeah.
Yeah, so I just, like I said, none of these figures other than Anthrax I remember, and he's really one of the only figures I remember from this wave at all from being a kid.
Yeah, even the commercials didn't show off all of them. The commercials showed off, I think, Anthrax, King Lionheart, and Dr. L. I think that was it. I think every other character from that wave didn't even have an advertisement. And the way I remember it being is that Hothead and Murdude came out a little later than the other guys. Like I think Anthrax, Lionheart, and Dr. L were first. Then I think a little after were Scaletail and Monty, and then I think considerably afterwards were Murdude and Hothead. I could be wrong though, but Murdude and Hothead were like the holy grails. Everyone was trying to find them, but yeah, it really was. I think most kids were in your boat. I think most kids didn't even know they were making new characters anymore. I think they just thought the line was nothing but turtles at this point.
No, I mean, I feel like they were just so drowned out because I mean, at this time, I mean, God, how many sublines were there? You know what I mean? Like after 91 is when the sublines really exploded to where, I mean, you were getting 20 different sublines a year. It's when all the sports turtles, like all the racial stereotype turtles came out. Like, I mean, just a subline for everything.
Yeah, there was so many. Yeah, because at this point, you had like what? I think 93, well, that's wave 6, but I think 92 and 93, you had like the Universal Monster Turtles, the Wild West Turtles, the Happy Birthday Turtles. Like, you just had like all these freaking turtles, all the movie 3 figures, which like I didn't give a damn about, like a realistic horse. I didn't care about that. You just had like so many sublines that it just became so overwhelming. Yeah, there was so much more of that. There was the Toon line, which was huge, and you just had so many crazy sublines coming out that when you only have like 6 or 7 new characters, they're just going to get drowned out by the 50 turtles that you have. Yeah. So yeah, I guess let's move on to the sad era of Wave 6, the final.
Yeah, which again, like no recollection of these as a kid for me whatsoever. Like I was completely, I feel like either about to be removed or had been removed. I really don't even have much to say about these figures. The only figure I own outside of Wave 4 is Murdude. So I mean, Wave 5 is already murky waters for me, and this is even more gone for me.
Yeah, the only one I really owned as a kid was Half Court. My brother owned him. Sandstorm, as I said earlier, he was the last mutant character we ever got. So my brother had a friend named Patrick, and he was getting out of the line. So he had Sandstorm. He's like, yeah, he's a little busted up, but I'll give him to you. So my oldest sister was babysitting Patrick's little sister. So when she was over there, he gave her that game. He actually also gave us his old Mario 2 because we never owned it. We used to rent Mario 2. So that's how we got Mario 2. So my sister comes home with this plastic bag and just hands it to us. Like, here's the thing he wanted to give you. And we open it up. It's just a pile of pieces. Like Sandstorm is just a pile of pieces. And we had to like put him back together. And it was kind of a cool like lesson on how these figures are constructed. Yeah. Even though he's a weird one because he has like the power punch thing that like He-Man had.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he has. It was supposed to be like, I don't know, like a tornado movement, like sandstorm movement or something. Okay. But yeah, because he comes with a scimitar. He's supposed to like slash with like the scimitar. But yeah, we put him together. My brother my brother put him together. You know, I was like 5. So my brother puts him together and stands him there. Or actually, I was probably 6. And he goes to turn him and to do the power punch thing. And when he lets go for him to go back, the whole thing just falls to pieces. Yeah, like it's like you couldn't have been better if it was done in like a cartoon or a Three Stooges short. So like it was kind of just at that moment when we were like, huh. Yeah, I guess this is the new line. And we just never collected another one after that. And I remember seeing, I mentioned this in my videos, there was a wall of scratches in KB Toys that we were looking at one day. When they came out a little later. First, it was Half Court, Sandstorm, and Mona Lisa came out, which was disappointing that they were separating the releases so much. Then later that year, we got Hot Spot and Scratch, which initially I was just like, a dog and a cat? Really? We got like an elephant and all these crazy animals recently, and now we're getting 2 house pets. Like, but I remember I was in KB Toys, and me and my brother just looking at a wall of scratches, which, you know, this wall is worth $1 million today. Right. A bunch of sealed scratches. And we're looking at him, we're like, yeah, I don't think we need him. And we maybe another time. And we just left. And it's like thinking back on that, it's like, dude, I'd kill somebody for that wall.
Okay, but the thing is, imagine if you had gotten that figure and then you got rid of it and how much worse you would feel today. It's almost better to have never gotten that figure than to have known you threw it out? Because didn't you say you just threw out all your turtles?
My dad threw out. So it wasn't even that long after. It was like a year later or something. Around Thanksgiving, I come home from school or whatever, and there's just a big black trash bag on the curb with all my Ninja Turtles in it. And I'm like, what's this? And my dad's like, I was cleaning out the basement. You're too old for those anyway. Don't worry, they're getting thrown out. I'm like, well, no, but I want them. He's like, no, you're too old. So I tried to rip open the bag and like sneak some out. The only one I got was Slapshot Leo. I got him back. And like of all the figures, I don't know why the hell I want. He was the only one that was there. I wanted to get all of them, but yeah, I think my dad would notice it was just an empty trash bag.
Right?
Yeah, I always think, it's better I didn't get that scratch because he would have ended up in the landfill. Because it's sad to think that all my figures just ended up in a freaking landfill.
Yeah,
like,
that was a bummer. We sold all of my toys at garage sales, so
that's better. See, that's better than just throwing them out. Because and the thing was so funny too is like, well, Dad, you're the one who bought all this shit. Like, you're the one who spent all this money. You're just gonna throw it out? Like, come on. It would happen a lot around like the holidays where like family would be coming over. My parents would get into a fight, and then my dad would just be angry and like, I'm gonna clean the basement or something, just throw a bunch of stuff out and all pissed off. But yeah, so I'm glad I didn't get that scratch. But honestly, you were saying earlier for a lot of the mainline figures, you didn't have them as a kid, so like that was like you wanted them back because they were like these forbidden childhood toys or something you didn't own. That's kind of what like Hotspot, Scratch, and Mona Lisa and stuff were for me when I got older. So I like needed to get those back, or not back. I needed to get them. Mona Lisa, luckily, I got her sealed in her box in 2006 for $10. Because no one cared about turtles yet at the time. Right. But Hotspot and Scratch, I got them in 2019, and they were a lot more than $10. Let's just say that. I am glad I have them. My Scratch looks like garbage. It looks like someone literally scratched them against a rock.
Didn't you get a second Scratch that was better?
Oh no, I said I might. No. Unless you want to count my Super 7 Scratch. But no, my Scratch, it looks like someone was using him to etch the days they were in prison. So he doesn't look that good. But I don't care. It's not too bad where like you can't look at him, like he's still intact. It's just like, it looks like someone played with him, which they did. Yeah. And but just having that figure and I have Hotspot complete, and he actually looks pretty nice, like very bright, vibrant paint and stuff. Just having those figures is just so cool to me because it's like, I don't care about these characters, but it's like I did it. I finally got every mutant character in the line. Like I always wanted that, and I didn't even know about Shote until I grew up, which he was part of a subline. He was part of the Shogun subline, but he's a unique mutant character, so I just clump him in with Wave 6. A really good deal on him, even though he was still expensive. It's just cool to be able to say I own every unique character from the Vintage Turtles line, actually, except for Byrne Thompson. I still don't have Byrne Thompson, but aside from that, I have everybody. So Wave 6 for me is really just a completionist wave. It's not something I really like care too much about. I have some nostalgic stories, but I'm not ultra nostalgic for it. Even Half Court, I thought he was cool, but I was already like falling out of the line at that point. So for me, Wave 6 is just like a completionist wave.
I'm in the same boat with you. Ultimately, one day I would like to complete the main line. Like that's my one goal. I mean, I know completing the whole line is not even possible. Like I've seen like maybe 2 people ever in Ed's Retro Geek Out videos that have a complete line. And I mean, these guys are clearly made out of money to be doing it and having they have. So it's just not possible. But the main line is something that is achievable, I think. And I'm fully aware Scratch is not the most rare figure. I know he's not the most rare, but he's the most rare figure that I do actually want, just because, like you, I want to complete all of those original characters.
Yeah. I mean, he's the most rare figure that people actually, like people outside of hardcore collectors actually give a shit about, because he's a unique character. He's infamous. He has a reputation. I know, like, yes, okay, this variant of Chrome Dome where he's blue is then called Warrior Chrome Dome. Like, that's super rare, but it's like, who the hell cares about that outside?
Yeah, I mean, only the most diehard of OG fans. Like, and again, clearly, if I was made out of money, I would want these things too, like, very badly. But I mean, when I just think of like $2,000 for a figure, I'm like, dude, I could buy so many subline figures with that. Like, I could buy so many damn figures. So, I mean, it'd be cool if I got to the point where I normalize spending money like that, but I got to make that kind of money first. So
maybe when you hit 2,000 subscribers.
Yeah, right.
So I guess before we wrap it up, there's still so much we could say about this, but we
Yeah.
don't want this to be a 3-hour video. So I guess we'll just go over who are some of your favorite figures. I think you've basically already done this, but who are your
so I've done a top 10 in recent times. Clearly, my favorite overall figure, I'm very cliche Slash, was my favorite figure of all time for sure. He's the one figure that I had that was an actual villain other than Krang. Like, I just fucking love that figure. I like how he looked like the Turtles, but just more like gnarly and sinister. So he was always my front runner. Once I got that figure, he was my most played with Turtles figure for sure. And then after that, the first Raph is the one that I have like the most memories with for sure. And I always liked him the most because he had the 2 flat feet, and I feel like you could kind of do the most with him. Even though they didn't have really a lot of posability, he wasn't stuck in that one diagonal position. So I feel like maybe that's why I might have been drawn to Raph. I don't know. I think I liked size a lot as a kid, but yeah, those are definitely my 2 favorite figures. And then after that, probably Casey. It's one I didn't have. It's one Pat and Cliff had. I love playing with it. I love that original Casey figure, and he was one of the first figures that I got after I got the original Turtle. So those are probably my top 3 favorite figures for sure.
I don't know if I could do a top 3. I think it differs from my favorite. My list is a little more complicated because some of them, I would say number 1 objectively the best figure in the whole line is Muckman and Joe Eyeball.
Yeah.
And he's one of my favorites, but I don't know if I'd say he's my favorite because he's not like my favorite character or anything.
Yeah, I think he came in at like 4 or 5 for me. I can't remember my list right offhand. I know he was really high, but
he was high on your list if I remember correctly. Definitely Worm is one I like a lot. He's really cool. I don't know if he's top 3 also. Slash, I agree with you. I don't know what it is about this figure, but he's just so cool looking. Like he's probably he's a runner up for 1 or 2. Number 1 or number 2 is Slash because like I think just as far as just like badass looking sculpts go, like no one in the line touches Slash. He just looks.
I just wish he was a little bit bigger. That's the thing. Like he's even a little bit small, and he's still just that damn cool.
Yeah. You can see he's a little smaller than even the regular Turtles, but I think like I love that they made him totally. They could have just easily taken the Turtles body build and everything and just changed the colors and gave him an angrier face. They made him like this hunchbacked, spiky, like battle-worn monster with like sharp teeth and stuff. And it's like they just made him so cool, and I love that they did that because again, like doing an evil version of the main character can usually be so boring, but it's usually just
literally every Marvel movie, every modern Marvel movie is just the main character fights evil main character.
Exactly. And I mean, even like Faker, the only reason Faker existed in Motu was for retooling purposes.
Yep.
Where Slash, there is literally nothing retooled on him. They retooled his accessories a lot later on and even his body with Toka. Yeah. But he was completely unique at the time. So I think that just works. It's kind of like why Wario is cooler than just being Mario wearing yellow, because they totally made a new character out of him. Right. So like Slash is just like he's totally different. He's totally unique and he looks awesome. He looks badass. I have, Bebop is one of my favorites. I think he's the first really cool looking figure from the line. Yep. Like he looks the most like he still looks like an early line figure, but he looks the most like the later lines. And I got to have a turtle because the original 4 turtles are so important. And I picked Mike. I don't know if he is my top favorite because Donnie's really cool. Donnie's my favorite turtle. I like those. Mike and Don are my 2 favorite of the turtle figures. Mike and Leo were mine as a kid. Mike was the second figure I got, and I just loved this figure when I was a little kid. I loved the color scheme. I loved everything about him. I just thought it was so cool. I mean, Leo's always gonna have a special place for me because he was my first turtle figure. Donnie was like probably the coolest looking. So honestly, for me, Raph is probably my least favorite of the 4, but I do still like the Raph. The Raph figure is super nostalgic too. So if I had to do a top 3, my brain is saying Slash, Worm, and Muckman. I think would be my top 3 in some order like that. Probably Slash, Worm, then Muckman is probably my top 3. It's probably different from what I even said in my videos, but
I mean, times change, opinions change. That's why I'll probably in the next couple of years run through top 10 videos again because I mean, like, my opinion does change on things, but.
Yeah, I just know PandaCon is never going to be in my top 10. I know
right?
That.
Yeah, so before we wrap this up, too, you guys should absolutely go check out Brendan's Turtle Talk videos from this. Like, those are how I discovered you. And when I first saw that video, I remember it was in the summer, And at work, it's very slow for me in the summer. So I just played those in the background, literally one after the other. And they're like, what, half hour to hour long videos each. And
they're long.
This podcast probably wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for those videos, because that's when I was watching those and I was like, man, I really want to talk to this dude about turtles. And then when you subscribe to me, I was like, I know this guy. I want to talk to him about turtles. So yeah, I highly recommend go check out those videos from Brendan.
Oh, thanks, man. That means a lot. So, yeah, I'd be thrilled if you guys check them out. That'd be awesome. Don't feel like you have to.
Anything else, or you think this will be a long one? This might end up being our longest podcast so far.
I think it's going to be the longest episode so far, and all we talked about was the main line. We didn't even touch on the sublines. So. But yeah, let's cut it off before it gets any longer. So,
all right, sweet. Good talk, man.
Yeah, good talk. Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right, later, guys.
Peace.
Peace.